The tale kicks off in the sleepy town where sunlight slams onto the rooftops like it owns the place. Guy yells at Ryuji, our poor protagonist, who's just standing there, totally baffled, trying to figure out why he got dragged into this out of nowhere and what the heck is going on. Guy says, since the rest of the crew is out on a job, I was going to give everyone the day off, but he locks eyes with Ryuji and declares that, effective today, he's officially kicked out of the party. Ryuji just freezes on the spot, stunned beyond words like he can't even swallow what his leader said. The same way it always goes in those Barnish tales, but this time, Guy doesn't hold back, he slams the question down. So you really have no clue how useless you are when things finally turn violent. But he trails off like the rest of the words are too dangerous. But Ryuji just shrugs it off like, duh, because his entire job is all about support style enchanting. He fires back at Guy, reminding him it was him who warned, you'll be a burden on the front lines, so stay in your lane and just make magic stones to buff the team. He calls it out, sure, these guys matter. But compared to Minori and Suzu, the real heavy hitters and true pillars of the crew, they don't hold a candle, right? Guy's expecting him to carry the same load as everyone else, and that's a total disaster waiting to happen. Guy slams his hand onto the table, screams that their rank will never climb because of him, and roars that Ryuji is an idiot for. Ryuji just can't wrap his head around it. He snaps that everyone else has already climbed up to second rank, while he's the only one still trapped down at third. So yeah, the Berserkers are never getting stamped as a real high-level party. And Guy just keeps hammering the point over and over. At this pace, they can kiss goodbye to ever reaching first rank because they're almost certainly going to be stuck at third forever. Ryuji goes totally silent, staring at Guy like a light bulb just flickered on inside his head. He can't stop replaying the old days, just him and his two stepsisters, Minori and Suzu, before everything changed. That was the very party the three of them kicked off, and turns out Guy was the one who barged into their group and claimed his spot. Ryuji finally opens his mouth, and right as he's about to talk, he snaps his head toward Guy. Wait. Just a second, because he realizes what's really going on. He corners Guy and demands to know if he only slipped into their group just to boot Ryuji out from day one. He presses harder, demanding to know if this is the real reason Guy made Sean take his sisters out this morning, just to shove them out of the way. Guy snaps at Ryuji to stop inventing stories, then glares like a hammer as he spits that trash like him is meant to be thrown away. Ryuji freezes in the dark, hits the realization that chasing a guy like this was a massive mistake, and he blurts, I get it now, but he doesn't just fade away quietly, he leans in and screams in Guy's face that he's done with the whole group. Ryuji yanks out a scrap of paper and tells Guy he's getting every single magic stone he ever lent him back one by one, no excuses. He lifts the official document up high, proving after keeping it all this time that he's dead serious about that gun. He's totally baffled, staring like, wait, what are you talking about? Because he truly believed every stone was shared party property. Ryuji cuts him off on the spot, jabs the paper, and spells it out fast. This contract clearly says the stones were a loan, no gift attached. He keeps the heat on that guy, warning him that if he won't hand them back, he'll happily take it to court and settle it the hard way. Ryuji just lets it land, stone calm, while Guy's sweat starts pouring. He flat out calls out that Guy's missing the rare stones of sublimation. And just like that, Guy's left standing there, stunned, speechless, with nothing left to say. Ryuji can't help but point out the delicious irony this guy actually looks down on Enchanter'S while he leans in and demands, so you're really just gonna coast on magic stones from here on out? Guy completely loses it. He yells at him to shut up, then snaps. He's had enough, so he whips a stone and hurls it straight at Ryuji's chest. Ryuji doesn't even blink, he shrugs it off, calls it a nice throw, and confirms. He made sure every last thing he was owed was collected before he finally told Guy goodbye. As Ryuji barrels out the door, he yells for Guy to go say hi to Minori and Suzu. He ditched the old party for good and headed to a quiet tavern where he could finally think in peace. He sits there, torn between moves, knowing he's got the cash in hand, but still has zero real leads, and then he shrugs it off and doesn't stress because his sisters are tough enough to spot him later. Ryuji's already plotting how to start networking and make his move, but before his thoughts can finish, a girl nearby screams that she's officially done teaming up with her partner and cuts herself off mid-lee. Lean is completely shattered, and he demands answers from Marie. Why is she pulling this stunt out of nowhere? Marie snaps back that she's just saying what everyone else is already shouting. Lean is an alchemist who only makes medicine, and it's getting ridiculous how much weight is now on her shoulders to keep finishing quests alone. While Ryuji just sits there sipping his drink, he mutters to himself that getting kicked out of a party must be the new trend, and then he decides fast that it's smarter to keep his nose out of it and just watch from the sidelines. Lean tries to stand her ground, but then she blurts out the truth. She's no fighter, so she pushes for a different plan. Offensive potions and all the right gear. But Marie barrels in mid-sentence and yells that her lack of combat skills is the exact problem. She goes off on a full rant, flipping out about how she has to split the gold she earned in battle with someone she thinks is completely useless. Slams the table again and again, screaming that the whole mess is beyond ridiculous. Marie ends it with a mic drop. She's already been scouted by a top-tier crew called Berserk. So now Lean is just in her way. Marie hurls out a cold goodbye and storms off, leaving Lean rooted to the spot, completely stunned and just frozen. Lean just drops into her seat at the empty table, and Marie marches for the exit like it's nothing. Not a second wasted. Hold up, smash that like button, then hit subscribe. For more secret manga gems, so go on, I dare you to comment. Comment right now, I'm totally loving this, and I bet most of you are too. So if you don't do it, don't blame me, got it. Alright, let's keep going. As Lean slumps in the shadows, wallowing in self-pity, Ryuji strides over and asks if he can take a seat, making... She snapped her gaze up at him, tears spilling over, and demanded to know who he even was. Ryuji drops that her friend is finally moving on, then accidentally reveals the truth. He's the same guy who got kicked out of Berserk. He rushes to apologize for Eve crashing down on her business, but Lean waves it off and tells him not to worry when he finally says his name, Ryuji, this third-class enchanter, just barrels in with a big friendly smile like he's trying to make you his buddy. Lean saunters back in as an alchemist, slips in that she's a third-class rank, and lets the whole room feel her presence. And he watches her whole party collapse right there in front of his eyes. Ryuji shoves a cloth into her hands and tells her to wipe those tears for now, and Lean immediately thanks him for being so kind. Ryuji flashes her a small smile, tells her he knows she's been through the fire, and since they're both outcasts now, he suggests they grab a drink and finally let their guard down. Lena agrees to hang out, but she straight up reminds him she's still a minor and can't touch the alcohol. Then she smiles and says she's totally happy to stay by his side. They huddle together in the tavern as Ryuji wraps up his tale, confessing to her that this is basically the whole reason he ended up alone. He tells them the truth. Guy, his own leader, is the one who tossed him out, and the twist hits hard because somehow they both ended up right back in the same place. Lean tells him to drop the formalities and just use her name, so Ryuji fires back that if she's switching like that, then she should call him Ryuji from now on too. She tries to act a little more formal since she's younger than him, but Ryuji just waves it off and tells her it's no big deal at all. Ryuji cuts the conversation short and leans in, asking if she'll show him some of her medicine because he's seriously hooked on seeing what she can make. Lean beams at his request, tells him she's got it, then dives into her gear and pulls out something for him to see. She slams 2 sharp glass vials onto the table and tells you these are the newest ones she's finally managed to piece together. Rugi sizes them up and Lean tells him, "Go ahead, just don't mess with the lid or the pin." He smirks and replies, "Relax, I've got it." Lean raises the vial and says it took forever to craft, and you can tell she's insanely proud of the results, especially because this somehow had to start. Ryuji scans the outside, clocks that everything looks totally normal, then snaps into action. He whips out his magic to see what's really going on inside, and he shouts the spell like a praise, and a glowing magic circle snaps into existence right in front of the bottle so that then the stats flare on screen. It's a firebomb that blasts flames within a 1-meter radius, and as he checks the power, he can't stop himself. He's like, "No way, this whole thing is freaking amazing." Ryuji blurts that his power crushes the magic the Berserk mages throw around, and it makes Lean snap and insist he's just totally exaggerating. Then it hits him. This output blows Suzu's genius out of the water 4 times over. And if he smuggles in his own enchantment too, the power would go absolutely out of control. So he leans in and asks her, "Do you realize how insane it is just to be able to pull something like this off?" Lean leans in, looks her straight in the eyes, and admits she's right. Marie said it plain the materials cost way too much, and she starts to crack a small smile as she goes, like she's about to drop the real catch. Lean tells Ryuji she's dead set on creating something truly great, even if it means she has to shove past her own limits to make it happen. She's going all in on her work, and she turns to him like, "Isn't helping someone with my creations the best thing ever?" Ryuji leans in and insists she's totally right, that they're basically the same person. Then slams his hand on the table while Lean just stares, stunned by how wild that sudden burst of energy hits. He says that as an enchanter, he's insanely proud of what he can do and every bit of hard work he pours into it. And it hits him hard watching his creations out there in the real world firing on all cylinders like they were born to be used. Lean opens his mouth to say his name, but a brutal clatter from across the room yanks Ryuji around to see what just happened. A bald dude is totally losing it at his own table, screaming at the staff to stop messing with him. The guy screams that every quest ends with beer and meat, but the manager just freezes there, all stressed out, trying to squeeze in a single word. The adventurer keeps losing it, yelling that he's second-rate at best, yet somehow he's the one dragging the whole town's economy on his back. So the manager finally admits the rare cut of meat he begged for is gone, sold out, and the guy just shrugs like it doesn't even matter. Ryuji's already fuming, convinced his timing for that talk is finally flawless until this dude decides to throw down and start a whole scene. Lean shoots a glance at the loud adventurer and tells him, right to his face, that she can smell the alcohol on him clear across the room. She demands to know what they're even supposed to do about it. And before she can blink, Ryuji clamps a hand over his mouth as a wild idea detonates in his head. He nods and tells her she's right, then says it wouldn't be fair to drag her into working with him if he didn't first prove what he can do. Before she can even blink, he snatches a bottle of medicine off the table, says he's borrowing it, and leaves her staring like, "Wait, what?" Ryuji strolls right up to the bald guy to face him head-on, and Lean screams his name like a warning. The adventurer finally cuts off his yelling for a breath, then snarls at Ryuji, asking who in the hell he thinks he is. Ryuji stayed calm, telling the guy they were just trying to enjoy their drinks and begging him to cut the noise down a notch. The dude snaps at Ryuji to wipe that cocky smirk off his face, then asks his rank. So Ryuji shrugs and says he's a third-class enchanter. He looks even more disgusted and growls that a low-ranked support who never fights on the front lines has no right to strut around like he's better than everyone. Ryuji's face is stone-cold serious, and Lean stands right beside him, looking like she's terrified of what he's about to do. He lets out a heavy sigh, presses his hand to his head, and goes, "Guy was exactly like this, and it's wild everyone's so obsessed with rank." He doubles down and basically says, "Look, I don't think rank is everything. There are tons of other things that matter just as much." The bald adventurer snaps, calling it all nonsense, then swings in with a punch and screams that Ryuji is ruining his drink. Ryuji doesn't even blink. He locks eyes with the guy and declares he'll force the truth into the open. He raises the medicine bottle and snaps his whirlwind enchantment on. Then wind magic spirals around his hand like a living storm. He brings up the moment that guy mocked him for not being a frontline fighter, and then he unleashes a terrifying wave of pressure. Wind slams into them like a truck, and Ryuji shoots back that this isn't just noise, it's for the pride of every hard-working craftsman the guy's been disrespecting. The adventurer gets blasted backward and slams into the ground with a violent thud, while Ryuji just stands there like none of it even happened. Ryuji jerks himself up, bolts into the street while screaming at the top of his lungs, and Lean just stands there stunned, watching the back of his head vanish. Lean is totally stunned by what she just saw, whispering that it can't be real, that there's absolutely no way this is possible. While the whole tavern spirals into chaos, they go the other way chanting his name, screaming that his power is straight up insane. Lean whips his head toward Ryuji, still clearly dazed, and blurts out what the hell he just witnessed. Ryuji flashes her a casual grin, shrugs off the moment, and says, "Let's split this tab and hit the road." He leaned in and made it crystal clear there was zero chance they'd ever get peace and quiet in a place like this. Once they spill outside, he tells her medicine is top tier and warns that if he'd used it the normal way, the tavern would have been leveled clean off the map. Lean just stands there, eyes locked on him, and fires the question. "So you're telling me that massive explosion of power actually came from your enchantment magic?" He shrugs it off, nodding like, "Yep, just tossed a little wind magic into the mix." And he breaks down exactly how he steered the flames, bending their path so they never touched a single thing they weren't meant to, while he leaned on the wind to tame the full blast, keeping that guy from ending up in the hospital. Ryuji leans in and calls out to Lean straight as they stride down the cobblestones, saying, "If he keeps using enchantment magic on medicine the way he just did, he'll crank up its power or turn it into something way more useful than anyone expected." He halts mid-step, locks eyes with her, and demands, "Why can't we just team up, just the two of us?" Lean sinks onto a park bench, looks totally thrown off, and blurts out, "So, you're asking me to join your adventuring party?" But Ryuji makes it crystal clear outside the party too. As a fellow craftsman, he's completely smitten with the work she does. He tells her they should set up a workshop together, side by side, and build a laid-back life that'll drive everyone else absolutely crazy with envy. He imagines an enchanter and an alchemist teaming up, then challenges them to show the whole world just how insanely amazing they truly are. Lean clenched her fist in her lap, whispering over and over that they'd run a workshop together until her words trailed off. Ryuji leans in and asks what she thinks, insisting it's a pretty fair deal for both of them. Lean's eyes glisten with happy tears as she looks up at him and blurts, "Yes, she can't wait to join him." When the clock tower slams into 3, a voice suddenly yells Ryuji's name from across the street. Guildmaster Emin barrels in and demands answers. "Are the rumors true that Ryuji quit the Berserk party and fled town?" Lean steps up and confirms it. Emin's jaw drops because Lean is walking out too. But she just grins, then thanks him for everything he's done for her all these years. Eamon rubs his head and admits the guild always has a hard rule against jumping into party brawls, but he just can't. But he can't stop himself. He blurts out to Ryuji what he plans to do about Minori and Suzu now that he's gone. Lean looks totally out of place and blurts, "Are those two the high-ranking members of the Berserk Guild leading?" Ryuji calmly tells him the truth. Those swordsman and mage in that party are actually his younger stepsister. It all suddenly clicks for Lean the moment she realizes why he'd been locked onto them from the start. Ryuji steps forward, dives into his gear, and tells the guildmaster, "I've got one last thing I need your help with this." He thrusts a package into Emin's hands, orders him to deliver it to his sisters, and makes him swear no way is Guy ever supposed to find out. Eamon freezes in silence for a heartbeat, and you can practically feel the weight of that request settling on him. Then he snaps his eyes shut, declares he's got this, and swears he'll make sure the sisters get the package. Standing by the gate, Emin fixes his eyes on the two of them and demands, "So, where are you actually trying to go now?" And Ryuji blurts that he's been thinking about taking off for a farther town so they can open a workshop together. Emin flashes a small wave, tells them he's certain fate will reunite them one day, and urges them to stay safe until that moment. He throws in one last command telling Ryuji to walk away and let him handle Minori and Suzu's well-being, which Ryuji grins as he glances back, then gives the guildmaster a heartfelt thank you that hits straight from the heart. With a bright grin, Lean steps in beside him and tells the guildmaster to stay safe too. Just as they finally begin heading out, they break away from the city and hit the dirt road, but after a while, Lean leans in and speaks up to snag his attention. She shoots a question. Is it finally official that they're moving to Southstead after all? Ryuji points out that the main road slices straight through town, and it's right near a magic stone mine too. So this is the perfect moment for them to finally team up, roll up their sleeves, and set up their own workshop together. He points out that since they're still on foot, the trip is going to chew up about half a month before they reach their destination. Even though Lean knows she's got to save every coin, this long trip has her worrying nonstop. She reminds him, we have no choice, we're both kicked out, and there's no money coming in, so we've got to move. So Ryuji straight up says they're going to have to hunt down some real cash to build that shop the moment they get there. He flashes her a grin and tells her, we've got all the time in the world, so just chill and take it easy. Lean glances back at him and admits he's probably right. Maybe they should just kick back and enjoy the ride. As they stroll down the road, Ryuji promises, from now on, you're in my care, and Lean lights up saying, same here. They trekked side by side beneath a sky full of stars. And right as their brand new lives kicked off on night one. Deep in the woods, a gang of bandits catches sight of some travelers, and when they spot their armor, they realize it's the royal army. The crew's leader taunts the knights, sneering that they're dressed far too nicely, then laughs it off like taxpayers must have paid for all that fancy gear. The guards instantly clock the ambush, bandits are closing in fast, and the lead knight yells at Lady Sesai to fall back, but the bandit boss just smirks, refuses to say it twice, and orders them to hand over every last thing of value before they're allowed to walk away. Lady says my face looks so worried, like I can already feel something awful creeping up on us before we even reach the frontier. Meanwhile, Ryuji tilts his gaze to the glittering sky and decides it's finally time to drop their camp for the night. Lean tells them, keep this pace and we'll hit Southstead tomorrow. And Ryuji only nods like he's already locked in. As they finally settle in, Lean leans in, grins, and demands why in the world did Ryuji choose to become an enchanter in the first place? Ryuji glances off to the side and tells her, yeah, it's a pretty long story, but if you want, I'll tell you. The campfire keeps crackling right between them as they catch their breath for the monster trek waiting ahead. Ryuji stared into the flames, and out of nowhere he said the Sakura Empire was way over on the continent's eastern edge, then leaned in and told Lean, that's where I grew up. He tells you the town's name comes from cherry blossoms, and the crazy part is, right about now, they'd usually be blooming all over the country. But then his mood flips. He confesses that after the war, he has no clue whether those breathtaking views even still exist. Lean's eyes widen. He's completely blindsided as he blurts, so back home, there really was a civil war, huh? Ryuji finally nods and stares back at the moment. Everything shattered when he was just 12 and lost both of his parents. He remembers tearing out of the country with nothing but smoke in the air, dragging his little sister and Suzu right behind him. After the fighting tore their families away, all they had left was emptiness. Nothing at all. Lean tells him that's a mountain for anyone to carry, and Ryuji only nods, quietly confirming, yeah, that really was. He says everything flipped the moment Master took them in, teaching them every skill they'd need to survive on their own. He heard the name repeat again and again, and he couldn't help but wonder, who is this mysterious person hiding behind it all? Ryuji stares into his drink, mutters that the guy never even gave them a name. So he shrugs and starts calling him Master, and then he admits the guy was brutal. But that same monster is exactly who drilled him in the basics of fighting and magic. Turns out Master was the first to spot it. Ryuji had genuine talent for enchantment. And Ryuji grins, straight up saying that after all that training, he finally knows what he's truly meant to do. Then he drops a jaw-dropping bombshell telling Lean that her teacher is actually an elf too. Just like her, and she's left completely stunned, and hands him another gut punch of a reason he can't just turn his back and walk off, leaving her stranded all alone. He admits the thought of her getting exploited by people who didn't even know her true value made him snap, and then he halts, bows his head, and apologizes for dragging her along like he's trying to soothe his own guilt over what just happened. Lean is totally flustered, blurts out to Ryuji, stop bowing it right now, explaining that since they're both stuck in the same mess now, he has no reason to stress about it. Lean grins and blurts out that she's honestly so relieved he reached out to her at the guild. Then she starts to say more. Ryuji just stares at her, then says it's a huge relief knowing she feels that way, and you can tell he's genuinely happy that, so it doesn't get weird between them. Then it hits him. The medicine she showed him back at the tavern, and he blurts that he's got some magic stones he's been dying to show her, and Lean's eyes light up as she says, I want to see them. So Ryuji shoots out his gloved hand and yanks them free, and Lean is completely blindsided. She can't wrap her head around it. Those magic stones look exactly like huge, jaw-dropping, expensive jewels. Ryuji reveals the truth. Your power doesn't stay the same. It shifts based on how cleanly and precisely someone can cut and shape it. He starts calling them out one after another. Naming the adamant, frigid, and sealing stones, then he begins to explain what they do, and the whole thing starts to get terrifying as it unfolds. The two of them snap to stillness. Lean twists over her shoulder, sensing something off in the air as he snaps into high alert on the spot. Lean asks what's happening, and he hisses at her to look over by the trees. Ryuji halts in place, strains to listen, and there it is, fists and shouts nearby, metal smashing together at full volume. So that means when Lean senses the danger creeping in, she snaps that she can't make out a single word. But all she catches is the sound of bandits, and then Ryuji zeroes in on the noise because with the fight this close, they don't get to pretend it's nothing anymore. It's their problem now. He tells them, if those guys really are bandits, then there's a pretty good chance you'll be their next target anyway. Ryuji snapped his head to Loon and said he's jumping in to help, but first he needs to know if she can actually fight. Lean doesn't hesitate. She tells him she's totally okay with it, and then they both have to move fast. Ryuji throws the go-ahead, and the two of them sprint straight toward the noise of the fight. As they sprint, Ryuji grins and tells her, this is it, I'm going to show you what these magic stones can really do in a real fight. Up ahead, the fight's already roaring, sparks exploding, weapons crashing, and every hit lands like thunder. It looks like the lead bandit's already got the upper hand. He's laughing in their faces, taunting them, what's wrong? And then he realizes their moves are grinding to a crawl. The guards are buckling under the pressure, and the main guy screams at everyone to stay standing because they've got to protect Lady Cease no matter what. Lean and Ryuji finally burst into the clearing. She jabs a finger toward the chaos and tells him they've found the exact spot. As Ryuji scans the area and blurts that he spots them, he shoots Lean a quick question, can she grab their attention? And she's already moving like she was one step ahead. She tells him to step back and trust her, snapping her magic into place at once, right as a glowing circle blossoms in front of her. As she hurls those searing chants into the air, the flames answer. She fires a storm of scorching fire arrows that slam straight into the bandits' crowd. One of the bandits took the hit straight on, and the moment the magic caught him, it shocked him so hard he burst into a full-on scream. The lead bandit whips his head around, stunned, speechless. He never saw anyone else coming. And the moment he realizes reinforcements have arrived, he knows trouble is already here. Ryuji slips straight into the thick of the fight, smirk blazing as he tells them, let me in too, I want to join the fun. One of the bandits blows a fuse, starts ripping into him with savage curses, but Ryuji isn't just standing there, jawing back and waiting. He slams the attack aside and instantly rockets back, landing a massive kick that hurls the guy flying through the air. Ryuji looks almost bored mid-fight, like he can't believe these bandits are all they've got. And he's thinking that compared to Minori's skill, they're just goofing around. But one bandit spots a chance. He lunges for Ryuji's back and screams, you're wide open, only to end up getting... The moment his blade clashes, blast sends him flying backward. Ryuji doesn't even bother turning around, just lets the fool soar away as the bandit snaps. Total disbelief hits him hard. He just stands there, staring at his blade, trying to wrap his head around how his attack got deflected. Ryuji thrusts a diamond monostone into the guy's face and starts breaking down how it works right as he explains the effect is. It fully wipes out any physical impact on whoever's got it right. As the guy's still stuck on that shock then, Ryuji rockets a punch into him and he's left groaning hard. On Lean's side, she's sealing the moment with her magic. She summons a web of lightning and blasts out her spark web spell to trap everyone, shouting as it all snaps into place so the last bandits get dumped on the ground, tied up tight. Ryuji scans the pile and growls, is that everyone? And Lean nods, saying it is. She swings by the knights to make sure none of them are hurt, and the lead guard tells her they're all good. Then he lets out a grateful thanks for stepping in to help. And right when that happens, then the hooded woman steps up, grins, and apologizes for the late reveal, only to announce, I'm Lady Cease. Lady starts to step forward, but the lead knight slams in and stops her right away, telling her she can't. She stares, shaken to the core, and backs off like she's just been hit with bad news. So Ryuji tells her to just breathe. He reassures her that it's all good, that he gets why they're keeping a low profile, and that she shouldn't stress about it at all. Then he adds straight up that they only stepped in to make sure their own campsite stayed safe all night, while Lean just stares. The lead knight steps forward, full-on grateful, and tells them he can't thank them enough. Then he looks at Ryuji and Lean and orders, let my crew take care of the bandits from here. Lean drinks in the dark sky, then clocks the guards, beaten to the bone. She yells at him, and then she yanks out a tiny potion bottle and asks if they need a bit of healing medicine. But you can tell she's second-guessing herself like she's afraid she's stepping out of line. But the knight won't move on. He stares at his wounds and insists they're nothing. Yet blood is still pouring out of him. Ryuji catches the vibe and insists it's completely normal to feel shaken getting meds from some random stranger. Then they just move on. He lifts his arm like a trophy, flashing that tiny scratch, and says he snagged it in the bushes while they were sprinting over to help, and then he trails off like there's more to the story. Turns out the timing is insanely perfect for the test. Lane stares at him like, what are you even doing? Totally lost. Ryuji tips the potion over his scraped arm, daring it to burn just to prove it's safe, and whispers to the lead knight that the drink looks totally harmless, then immediately asks if he wants it right now, so the other guards start yelling, we want some too. and the lead knight scrambles to silence them, but Lady Sesai strides in, snaps the knight diet to calm down, and then she locks eyes with him and declares, loud and clear, that she'll take full responsibility for everything that happened. The knight opens his mouth to argue, but Lady Sesai just shoots him a look, bam, shutting him down cold. Ryuji steps in, throws his name out there, and tells everyone he's planning to open a workshop in Southstead. He tells the group, if you're into that medicine, come see me, drop by and visit anytime. Ryuji later blurts that he finally figured out those people were high-ranking, and once he understood, he acted on it. Then he turns to Lean and apologizes for dragging her into all this chaos, and he admits he's sorry for taking her medicine without even asking her first. Lean says dealing with nobility is no big deal, but she's still stunned. He guzzled that potion like it was nothing. No hesitation at all. Ryuji says it's totally normal for a knight to stay on guard, and yeah, the guy made the smart call. So when he sees Lean's pure intentions get doubted like that, it just won't sit right with him. He has to admit it. Lean freezes for a beat, staff in hand, just staring as he strides off ahead. She flashes a warm smile and basically says, that selfless move, yeah, that's totally your thing, isn't it? Ryuji throws his arms wide, points at the sky to show how late it's gotten, and asks if they should head back to camp. Lena agrees and pushes for rest right now, saying they'll need to be fresh and ready for tomorrow because soon things are about to kick off. Soon, the story rockets to the far southwestern edge of the continent, right where Southstead City sits. That harbor makes it a massive strategic goldmine for the kingdom of Basestein. This place is power right on the water. That's what it's supposed to be, but the woman standing right there looks like she's fighting for her life. Ryuji glances around the silent building, and he blurts that the town is nothing like he expected, way less lively than he'd hoped. And Lena nods along, saying it only makes sense because the Adventurers Guild is in a truly heartbreaking mess right now. Ryuji strides up to the counter, fumbling as he awkwardly asks the receptionist if her name is Anne, He starts the move in, then slams the brakes because before he goes any further, he has to stop and ask if this place is actually in Southstead. The receptionist looked completely wiped out as she double-checked that they were, without a doubt, in the right city. But sure, there are roads to the north and east, and even a mine practically around the corner, but it all feels wrong, like something's about to snap. This spot used to be a huge waterside transport hub, and everybody in Southstead knew it was the place you had to be. Lean just stares, totally baffled, then blurts out, wait, did I hear that right? Turns out, about a year ago, everything started crashing. Then the magic stone supply tanked, and the mine finally shut its doors. Then bam, an enormous earthquake slammed the area, smashed the port to rubble, and the city was left with zero way to rebuild. Anne leans in and tells everyone that new highways and fresh trade routes are suddenly popping up everywhere else, and it's about to change everything. Lately, it's like the whole town's been abandoned. Fewer and fewer people are actually coming through. Ryuji just stands there, clearly drowning in stress, and yeah, this is not the upbeat start he'd hoped for. Anne fires a question at Ryuji, what's his game plan, and does he really want her to just roll forward and handle the residency paperwork anyway? But Lean cuts in fast, saying, if Ryuji's in, then I'm in too. Ryuji pauses for a split second, then decides to come clean and tell them the real reason he's here. He leaned in and told me the real reason he felt forced to transfer to that exact city. Outside the building, Anne's voice cuts through the air as she demands one last time if they're truly, absolutely sure about this. And Lean tells Ryuji, after hearing your reason, I'm convinced this has to be our top priority. So, when she tells him not to even break a sweat, Ryuji flashes her a grateful look and shoots back a quick thank you. And she lets them know the registration's totally done. Then beams, she's pumped to get started and work with them. Lean leans in and tells her straight up, they genuinely can't thank her enough for the help. Then Lean blurts out that they're seriously thinking about launching a workshop right here in town, explaining that they'd already kicked off the hunt for the perfect place to move into. Anne's eyes light up. She snaps, wait, I've got it if that's true. I know exactly who we need. They're about to meet a guy named Thor. He'll pull strings and land them an intro at the Commerce Guild. Thor strides up, introduces himself, and tells the crew, relax, I've already heard every detail about your situation from him. As they get ready to head out, Thor calls it out right away. This trek to that specific property is a long one. And Ryuji agrees, yeah, it's totally tucked away, far from the heart of town. Thor tells them, yeah, it's far, but trust me, this spot is perfect for a workshop. The rent is right, the location's ideal, and everything clicks. The crew finally reaches the spot, and Thor sweeps in like, we're here, this is it, showing off this massive stone building as one of the places he's got ready for them. Lean's jaw drops at the sheer size of the place. Meanwhile, Ryuji grins and admits it might be a bit too big. But he's all in on the mystery and begs Thor for permission to storm inside and take a look for himself. Inside, dust and cobwebs choke every corner, screaming that this place has been abandoned for ages. After sweeping the empty rooms with his eyes, Ryuji turns, leans in close, and tries to catch what she's thinking. She finally admits it'll take a ton of hard scrubbing, but hey, that nearby forest turns it into the perfect spot. Ryuji fires off the call on the spot, tells Thor he'll take the house, and throws in a quick thank you for the deal. Thor gets hit with how quick they're moving, but he shoots back, fine, I'll sprint back to the guild for those papers. Ryuji gets left behind to scramble for answers. Can they snag a head start on cleaning the inside while everyone waits? Thor grins, waves them on, and says, "Since you signed that contract and agreed, go ahead, do it." Right as they stare at the place, Ryuji blurts out that since they signed so fast, Thor is letting them use all the materials out there for free. Lean stares at that towering pile of logs and blurts out that there's no way those things are going to budge easily. Ryuji yanks a glowing gem into view and tells her that's exactly where his magic stone Herculean strength starts doing work. Leaning is completely caught off guard, but Ryuji just smirks, then says that with this stone, all that backbreaking manual labor is about to feel like a total breeze. That sparks a fire in Lean's eyes. She leans in and tells him, "If you're pulling that off, then leave every bit of housework to me." She's riding high, practically bragging that her alchemy makes fixing up or even forging brand new furniture so easy it's almost unfair. Ryuji nods and says the plan is solid, then he pushes her to finally start working on the place. Lean blurts out a booming "yes" as they gear up to transform that old building into their brand new home, and the second she snaps into action, she yanks out her staff and unleashes her magic so bright it lights up everything. Inside the house, a magic circle ignites on the floor, and suddenly furniture starts popping into existence, out of nowhere. Lean throws herself into her alchemy, hammering out shelves and tables, while Ryuji grits through the heavy lifting somehow. They blaze through the whole interior and finish it in record time. They step back, stunned by their brand new workshop packed to the brim with every piece of alchemy gear they need to finally get started. But when Thor finally stomps back in, he just freezes on the spot. He blurts out an apology for the delay, then snaps, "What did you even do to this place?" The room flips from dusty wreck to a top-tier lab in an instant, and Thor just can't stop staring at the transformation. He leans in and basically says, "No joke, that's seriously impressive. You made it this far in such a short amount of time." And Lean just beams with pride, cheering like, "Look, she truly gave it her all." Switching gears, Thor yanks out the last stack of paperwork and demands they sign the contract, no problems, no hesitation, while Ryuji shoots back, "All right." And then Lee spots Thor lugging a ridiculous amount of extra luggage, and Ryuji leans in, squints, and asks if that cargo is really just a bunch of vegetables. Thor gets all awkward and brushes it off as a personal issue, then finally admits the truth. He's probably just a hypocrite. Lean looks totally thrown off by what Thor just said, snapping back hypocrisy like it's the whole point. Right before he even gets the words out, she spots something moving in the bushes outside the workshop. She spots two elf girls ducking in the trees and blurts out loud and clear, "Wait, are you really elves?" Thor strides right up to them, grinning like he just scored, announcing he finally tracked them down and even showing up with more vegetables for the day. The older girl brightens instantly, blurts out "Big Brother Thor" and thanks him for the help, then nudges the little one to say something too. Lena, the younger girl, flashes him a huge grin and chirps, "Thanks." Lean's eyes light up at the kids and she turns to Thor, practically dying to know who are they really. Thor suddenly realizes he dropped the ball on manners, blurts out an apology, and insists he has to properly introduce the kids to Ryuji and bow the right way. He tells him the sisters are just next door and totally on their own with no parents to help. Plus the worst part, their farm soil is basically junk, so they can't grow a single thing to eat. Lean hangs on Thor's every word, his heart sinking as Thor admits the girls are just scrambling to survive, doing whatever it takes to get by. Thor points out the kids' battered hands, tells them they scramble to harvest anything they can, but it still isn't enough, so he's been slipping them his own food to keep them alive. Lean keeps staring at the girls' tiny, calloused hands, then he murmurs Ryuji's name like he can feel every brutal day they've survived. Ryuji stares across the dead land, eyes hard as he realizes just how awful the soil really is, and he falls silent for a beat while, as he watches the sisters huddle together in the dirt of their empty farm, something hits him hard. He snaps into total determination and says they're doing it. Lean's thrown back, hit by that sudden fire in his eyes as the moment begins. Ryuji declares he's going to forge a brand new field with his enchantment magic, and with a grin, he insists his power has no limits. With a glowing stone in his grip, he declares they'll cast enchantment magic and build the girls a real, proper field. Thor stares at Ryuji like he's lost his mind, then blurts, "Wait, what are you even talking about? Enchantments for farming that makes zero sense." Little Lena is just as lost. She blurts that a field is already right in front of them, and that leaves... He storms off, leaving the whole crew staring at Ryuji like he's gone insane while he just stands there, locked in, ready to get to work. Ryuji stared across at the dead, dry field, then snapped. He changed his plan's wording because he realizes he came off way too intense, so he quickly asks, "Can I cast a spell to make your vegetables grow better?" Lana blurts out, "Is it really magic?" And little Lena's eyes light up. She's practically bouncing, swearing that healthy vegetables are the best idea ever. Ryuji nods, snaps into action, and strides straight into the heart of the patch while he scans the area for the perfect spot, then turns to the group and asks if where he's standing is okay. He doesn't even pause. He stomps the enchanted stone straight into the dry dirt. Ryuji grins and says, "That's gotta be enough." But Thor just looks baffled and blurts, "Wait, you're telling me burying a rock is all it takes?" Ryuji tells everyone the magic stone is packed with a specific enchantment, but the real shock doesn't hit until tomorrow morning. Then he beckons the two sisters over to help him finish the ritual. But Lana can't shake the feeling that she has no clue what they're even meant to do. Lean just grins and tells the girls, "That's the whole secret spell, tell the field, get well soon, and watch it work." Lena looks absolutely fired up, bursts out loud, and Lana grins through it all, so thrilled to see her little sister going all in. Together, the two of them roar into the field, urging the crops to bounce back just like Lean told them. Back at the old party, some guy is losing his mind, screaming at Guy and Sean like he's about to explode. Minori steps right up into Guy's space and demands face-to-face that he finally spell out exactly what happened to Ryuji earlier that day. She's fuming, screaming that if Ryuji had been there with them, they never would have been pushed to their limits, never would have had to scramble and run for their lives. He just scowls, tries to wave her off, and practically lies through his teeth, swearing Ryuji just took off on his own. Suzu snaps at him face to face, calling him a liar, insisting there's no way Ryuji would ever ditch her and the rest of the team. But Guy tries to dodge the chaos, insisting they should retreat first. Then Minority snaps and turns on Sean, barking, "Say something!" Sean's stomach drops as panic detonates inside him. His body suddenly feels absurdly heavy, and he realizes exactly how badly they're getting hit without Ryuji's buffs. The Minority glares them down, wastes no time, and snaps, "So, you're failing? Are you really stuck without the magic stone of sublimation?" Guy finally gets it. He desperately needed Ruga's help, and now he feels totally exposed. Like there's no hiding anymore now that Minori is ripping into him, saying he only wanted a reason to throw out a miser because he hated him. She snatched the loot into the spotlight, then accused him of making up excuses just to exile Ryuji. Then the shock hits him when she actually says that word. So Sean panics, lies through his teeth, and says Marie was the greedy one, claiming she pressured Guy into handing over the money. Marie totally snaps, screaming at Sean as he tries to pin the whole mess on her while Suzu fights her way through the chaos. She grabs Minori and shouts that they've got to move because monsters are about to show up. Minori snaps, "I know exactly what to do," and she plants her feet, refusing to back down. Right then, she drops the bomb. Suzu's out too. Both of them storm off from the party immediately. The Minority leans in and tells Suzu it's time. Then the two of them stride off without looking back, leaving the rest of the group in the dust. Marie's totally confused, so she asks Guy what's going on. But before she can even finish, he snaps at her to shut up and get out of his way. Guy's fuming to the core, snarling curses under his breath as he sees his party unravel right in front of him. And back at the guild, Minori and Suzu burst through the doors and tell the guildmaster they've made it back. Emin scans them with his arms locked across his chest, then tells them it's seriously rare to catch both of them this wrecked. Minority snaps that Guy and the crew totally botched it, and that's why they had to bail on the mission. MN calls out those fools for totally underestimating Ryuji's enchantment magic then. Minori's shocked to find out he already knew about it, so Emin just shrugs it off and demands to know where the rest of the guys are hiding. Suzu snaps into action and tells him she left the rest back in the dungeon, making it crystal clear she and the others are officially done with that party. Emin grins and says, "Yeah, exactly," right as he reaches for the letter, and then he shoves it into their hands, basically yelling, "Read it right now." Minori snatches the paper, and her whole body freezes in shock because she realizes the message is actually from Ryuji. Emin blurts that he's been clutching that letter ever since they left town. He just couldn't hand it over with Guy lurking right there, so Suzu reads that Ryuji is waiting for them in Southstead, whips around to her friend and demands, "So what's the plan?" And Minori doesn't even pause. She flashes a smile and basically declares, "Of course I'm going to find him." The next morning, sunrise spills over the quiet workshop. Ryuji wakes up, stretches like he finally nailed that good sleep, and then, bam, he hears a noise. Lana's screaming his name from outside, and he panics. Did something go wrong, and why would she call him out so fast? So he bolts outside, and Lena, little and furious, points at the field and screams at him to come to see what's going on. Lean lurches out after him, still half asleep, blinking at everyone like, "Why are we freaking out this early?" Lena barrels forward, yelling at both of them to hurry up and see this. Then the story kicks into the next part. As the entire group stood there in the field, completely frozen, staring at crops that had shot up overnight like a miracle. Ryuji admits he never expected his work to hit this hard while the kids just scream and hype it up nonstop. Like it's the coolest thing ever, and Lena blurts out to Ryuji that his magic is unreal. Lana can't even wrap her head around how all of this happened in one single night, and then Rugi tells him, "Yesterday I planted a Pura Monostone in the ground. I enchanted it to supercharge the crops and make them grow way faster." Lean leans in and asks if he's talking about the god of fertility, then presses even harder, demanding to know if he's truly never used a stone like that before. Ryuji shrugs and says adventurers are basically drifters who never stick around. And Lean has to swallow that because, yeah, he's right. Lena's standing there, but her stomach growls so loud it might as well be shouting. She's starving. Lean grins and pushes the idea like, "We're already out, so let's start making breakfast for everyone." And before she can even finish, so she tells Lana and Lena to go grab some fresh vegetables. and the two of them rush to help without a second thought. Ryuji yells that the harvest is officially time to roll, and Lena blasts out a huge shout as everyone jumps into action. The sisters beam as they haul crates packed to the brim with fresh, giant vegetables. Everyone plops down at a giant feast of fresh greens, and the sisters can't wait to lunge in and devour every bite. The food vanished in a blink, no leftovers, not even a single scrap clinging to those plates. Lana slumps back with a groan. "I'm totally stuffed," while Lena beams, finally savoring a plate with nothing left but smiles. Reina smiles and asks if everyone enjoyed the meal, and Ryuji looks genuinely pleased with how it all went until... Then he swivels to Thor and blurts out the truth. Yeah, they've got food now, but nothing's fully fixed. And he trails off like the bad news is still coming. Ryuji drops a bombshell on the girls he admits that out in the fields earlier. He noticed the soil looked even worse than it did the day before. He brings up the Pyra magic stone he once used to blast through the harvest, and he explains how that stone drains the ground dry, sucking up every drop of water and every scrap of nutrients until the land finally withers and dies, and Lean clocks the moment she steps in, heart racing, and asks if it's finally her turn to help. Ryuji asks if she can fix the soil, and the second she says she can grab the ingredients in the forest, he tells her to go for it right now. Ryuji squints like he's missing something, then blurts, "Wait, what are you really saying?" But Lean flashes a massive grin and tells everyone, "Hand it over to me and Ryuji, trust me, it'll all work out." Ryuji leans in and tells Lana and Lena he's handing over those lucky stones, then adds that Lean will be the one who gets the soil fixed up. The girls get totally caught off guard. Lana whips around to him and demands, "Are you really sure you want to hand those stones over?" Ryuji sounds certain, then leans in and asks for a trade. He wants them to let Lean have a piece of their field. He tells her, "Since you're an alchemist making medicine, you need a place to grow every kind of plant you'll need for your work." Lana says she's totally fine with letting them use the field, but then she drops a warning something big could blow up. So Ryuji scoots closer and demands to know what's really eating away at her about that idea. Lana blasts in, saying the wild boars won't stop raiding the place, and she's terrified that if they let the rest of the field lean, those boars will trash it all. Ryuji just smiles at her, swears he gets what's going on, and promises this mess is going to be an easy fix. Ryuji yanks out a crystal, then grins. There's just enough dirt in the field's corner to make his plan work. So he hoists a mud-core magic stone, and it erupts into a blazing, intense glow, right up to a point where the light fades out. The hulking golem of thick mud and earth grinds itself back together right in the middle of the field. Ryuji jabs his finger at the creature, declares its name Spriggan, and snaps an order drive off any wild beast that dares to mess with the people or the crops. That magic stone sits dead center on the golem's back, perfectly placed as it's poised to start working, but Lean stares at that colossal monster and blurts out, "So you're really telling me you can just crank out golems with enchantment magic like it's no big deal?" Ryuji shrugs and says alchemists crank out golems and all that stuff every day. So he's not seeing why everyone's making a big deal of it, but Lean looks completely crushed and snaps, "They don't make them this easy anymore," like her own skills have suddenly turned to dust. Ryuji whips back to the crew and tells Thor the boar problem has to be wiped out for good. Then he starts to walk away, leaving. Thor froze in place, utterly stunned, because the whole thing hit so fast it blew past every expectation he had. Lean flashes a warm smile at Thor and tells him, straight up, that everything he's done for the two sisters so far truly matters. And she swears she'll be there for him from now on, then tells him to quit beating himself up, because calling his kindness hypocrisy is wrong, and she truly believes that, thinks his choices are the kind of thing he should honestly be proud of, and Thor's shoulders finally dropped. He looked truly relieved, and her words hit him deep as he just thanked her for understanding. Ryuji shifts gears and grills the details. Can the Merchant Guild harvest and sell everything after we stash enough food for Lana and Lena? So Thor nods on the spot and vows they'll handle it all, meaning those girls will never have to stress about money again. Ryuji tells the girls it's awesome they can finally gorge themselves every single day, but they look totally swamped, and they ask, shaky as anything, if he's really sure he should be spoiling them this much. Ryuji just ruffles one of their heads and tells them not to stress over it because people are meant to help each other. And he blurts out that he used to be right there with them years ago, living the same struggle. He grins because the memories hit him back then. He got tons of help too, and it all comes flooding back. Both sisters can't contain their joy. They beam from ear to ear as they thank Ryuji, grateful for everything he's done. Ryuji scans the whole area and realizes since the fieldwork is finally done, it's time to figure out what's next. Lean interrupts and says, "Enough focus on my business now. I've already wasted so much time helping you guys." So Ryuji pauses for a split second, then swivels to Thor and asks for advice. He leans in and asks if those abandoned mines nearby are truly off limits to everyone. Thor looks shocked for a second, then tells him, "No one's trapped, come and go whenever you want." He tells Ryuji this place is abandoned once the magic stone supply ran dry, so there's probably nothing valuable left to find. As he watches them trade words, Lean slips back to the day they formed their party, and the truth hits him hard. Ryuji has been shouldering the whole weight since the start. So she digs in even harder. She's done hesitating because from this moment on, she's determined to become the one he can finally rely on. The whole crew hikes up to the burn mine, perched high on the mountain like a trap waiting to snap shut. Lean suddenly slips on the rocky ground, yelps and tumbles as she scrambles to stay upright. She swore she'd give it her all, but this trail is already kicking her ass way more than she ever could have guessed. She snaps into a bargain, then screams at Ryuji, stunned that their simple trip blew up into this disaster while he shoves her forward, telling her to keep running, and wondering whether these wild accidents are just another day at the job. When they trekked through the mountain, and the burned mine range towered with massive snow-capped peaks on every side, turning the razor-thin cliffside path beneath their feet into something impossibly tiny. Sketchy as hell, Ryuji snaps at her to watch her step because the ground is already splitting under their feet, and Lean's forced out a shaky breath as she scrambles for something, anything solid. Ryuji glances back at her, worry written all over his face, checking whether she's truly holding up because he can't afford to assume anything. Because he finally cracks and admits he's been on edge for a while, then he tells her he's been seriously scared she'll trip, slam into the ground, and seriously hurt herself on these rocks. Lean flashes him a jittery smile and swears she's okay for now, somehow still standing on her feet without slipping even. She's totally unraveling on the inside, telling herself to push through. But it still hurts like hell because this adventure is nowhere near what she imagined. She locks eyes on this road ahead, jaw set, trying to keep her focus, but something keeps tugging at her thoughts, and it's not letting go. Ever since they ditched the main road, the closer they creep to the mine, the mood twists like the quiet mountain trail itself is turning colder. The mountain path is crumbling underfoot, and every step feels worse than the last, like the trail is daring you to slip, right up until with the ground totally torn apart, Ryuji snaps that the earthquake hit hard enough to smash the harbor, so yeah, the mountain is in rough shape, and Lean thinks landslides are probably chewing up the path in the worst places, but it's clear she can't shake it. She even admits it might be rude to ask, yet she presses anyway. Why is Ryuji headed to a place like this at all? She reminds him that Anne and Thor both warned him the mine gets ditched, and it's deadly, so this whole trip suddenly feels like a massive gamble with nothing to gain. Ryuji locks eyes with her and blurts that he's going because he'll bet on even the tiniest chance, and it leaves her completely dumbfounded. He can see the odds are brutal, and she's right. They might haul nothing back just like last time, but he's already made up his mind. He looks her in the eyes and says, "We planned for every risk, so yeah, it's still worth it, even if danger's right there waiting." Lean pauses for a split second, then it clicks, he's right. So as the right in front of the mine's pitch-black entrance, she steels herself. She'll be useful, and she's going to give this mission every ounce of her strength. The mine's interior looks exactly like they feared, jagged rocks everywhere. Rubble piled up in every direction, like the place got wrecked on purpose. A goblin bursts out of the darkness, eyes blazing wide, grin stretched with sharp teeth like it had been waiting right there for them. Lean completely snaps, lets out a scream, and just stands there, stiff, shocked, speechless at how instantly the monster shows up. But Ryuji doesn't even bat an eye. He just calmly summons the adamantite magic stone's power to ignite. And as goblins burst from the shadows to swarm them, he crashes in front of Lean, taking the hits to shield her. Ryuji's spark web snaps out, catching the monsters before Lean's even manages to finish her sentence, and they vanish into the air, leaving the goblins frozen in their tracks. Ryuji hurled the magic to pin them down so they couldn't wriggle free, and then he instantly follows up, launching a freeze bullet spell that blasts razor-sharp shards of ice straight ahead, and the strike lands with brutal force, vaporizing the goblins on impact and wiping the whole area in one ruthless, clean sweep. Lane just glares at him, shaking her head like she can't even believe it. And then she blurts that the whole performance was straight up amazing. Ryuji yanks her up and demands if she's okay, and Lean insists she's fine. She just got completely blindsided because he showed up so damn fast. Lean stares back at the wreckage and blurts out, "Was that ice bullet really just a low-tier spell, or was the power behind it way bigger than it should have been?" Ryuji just grins, nods at the staff he's gripping, and tells her it's all thanks to them, so Lean's like, "Wait, tell me, is this some wild ancient relic?" But Ryuji shuts that down. He didn't mean it like that at all. He infused the gem on his staff with sage power to crank his magic way higher. He spots the gem on Lean's staff, goes, "Want me to enchant yours too?" And Lean practically launches into a thrilled yes. Lena nods, but Ryuji shuts it down. "Let's choose the real enchantments later because those picks will basically map out your whole future." Next, they push deeper until the cave tunnel splits in two, branching off in totally different directions, and that choice is about to matter. Lean studies the map, tells him, "Straight will get you there," then points out a risky open spot if they swing left. Ryuji freezes for a moment, mind racing as he decides which way they should go next. Lean nods and says she'll go check it out, then snaps her staff up and casts a detection spell to reveal what's coming next. She scans the results, locks eyes with Ryuji, and says it looks like a whole swarm of goblins is lined up just to the left. Ryuji freezes for a split second, then his mind snaps into gear and a plan starts forming fast. So he stares into the dark tunnel, spots that pack of goblins, and locks in the fact they're definitely headed left. Since they're already out here roaming, Ryuji tells them, Let's wipe these goblins out and then swing back to the guild to report every kill later. Lean's all in, she's like, let's go, and she starts powering up her magic as they push deeper into the cave. They finally crash into a wall and Lean flips the map around to prove this exact spot is a dead end. But she still checks in with Ryuji, demanding to know if he turned up anything on his end. Yet he just shrugs and tells her there's nothing worth even talking about. Ryuji's face drops as he stares at that exact spot, muttering to himself how it turned into a full-on disappointment. He was really betting that his detection magic would finally sniff something out, even with the pitiful low yields lately anything, even if it wasn't a brand new ore vein. Ryuji stares at the wall, asking himself if he totally missed the mark, and Lin's thrown off guard in the blink of an eye, and he starts asking what's wrong until she blurts out his name and points to. She heads straight for a tiny crack in the cave wall where a sliver of light pours through from the other side. Ryuji locks onto the light, stunned, speechless, because it hits him. This could be the huge breakthrough they've been chasing. But he's terrified that smashing through will bring the whole place crashing down, so Lean steps in and tells him to back off and let her deal with it. She shuts her eyes tight, calls to the earth's spirits, and pours her mana into a blazing spell. And the ground starts to shake as the rock face splits apart, tearing open like it's making a path just for them. Ryuji grins and tells her she crushed it, while Lean shrugs and explains she only loosened the soil where that light was pouring through. Lean peers at the brand new opening and blurts, "Is this really what I think it is?" And Ryuji just nods like there's no doubt. Turns out they stumbled onto a hidden path that absolutely wasn't here when the mine was still running. Ryuji reckons a massive earthquake cracked open this brand new trail one that isn't even on any of their maps, and it leaves him staring at it, stunned. Lean studies the wall's soft clay like a smoking gun, pointing it out to prove he's right. He praises her for an amazing job, and she can't help but burst into giggles while, together, the two of them plunge deeper into the dark cavern, leaving the light behind. Lean gushes that this new path feels incredible, and Rugi nods hard because it's exactly like that, and then some, seeing as it was nothing like the tunnels they'd stomped through before. This one felt totally alien. Glowing ores are scattered everywhere, lighting the whole place up like treasure just waiting to be grabbed. Ryuji can't shake the feeling that a massive buried treasure is waiting for them just ahead, still undiscovered. Lean swallows hard, admitting she's starting to get nervous about what they might uncover, but Ryuji cracks a joke about it being hilarious if they find nothing. But Lean is locked in. She's determined to drag back real good news for the guild. Lean screams and throws up her hands over her eyes as they step into a cave section that's way brighter than everything around it. Turns out the whole cavern is stuffed with glowing crystals, and the entire place lights up like it's alive. Ryuji just stands frozen, absolutely stunned by how massive it all is. So Lean corners him and asks, "Did you really know that the find would blow up this big when you said it was worth the risk?" Ryuji finally admits he never, ever saw results like this coming. Then it hits him, this haul is huge, way bigger than he imagined, and suddenly he's even dreaming about scoring a bonus from the Merchant Guild. Lean stands there, totally frozen in awe, gushing that everything is gorgeous. Ryuji drops to his knees, leaning in to stare at the deposits on the floor up close. And just like that, he can tell the ore's the real deal, top tier, no doubt. That vein is so massive that the moment word spreads the place has been rediscovered, the entire city is going to feel the shockwaves. Looks like the city is about to flip into a whole new era. Zarastat's magic stone supply might finally restart, and everything could change fast. Lean spots it too and yells to Ryuji because that cave path doesn't stop here, it plunges even deeper. Ryuji glances up and, yep, she's right. Then it hits them both, this place is absolutely enormous. Lean flicks his gaze back and asks, "Should we push on and find out what else is waiting for us?" But Ryuji suddenly insists they've grabbed enough for today, telling her to call it quits right now because the chance the cave collapses is skyrocketing. Lena nods and says, "Yeah, let's head back now," then throws out the idea of scouting a few more places like this as they go. Ryuji starts to say it sounds like a solid plan, but something slams into him mid-sentence and cuts him off instantly. He snatches Lean's arm and screams her name, yanking her backward before she even realizes what's happening. A giant boulder crashes through the wall, then Ryuji yanks Lena out of the blast range at the last second. Lean trembles in place, trying to make sense of it all, when she finally clocks that a giant boulder was about to flatten them. Ryuji whips around fast, checks Lean right away, and asks if she's okay, making sure she isn't hurt. He replays that moment in his head, the adamant magic stone he handed her earlier as a backup, because now it's painfully obvious that when that massive boulder rockets in with pure force, even diamond-hard stone gets turned to dust. There's just no fighting it. Normally, Lean would have clocked it from the start, but Ryuji can't help wondering if those strange echoes in her head twisted what she heard, making it seem like the sound was coming from way farther away. He shuts out the noise for a second because right now, something else hits harder and matters way more. A huge boot stomps out, dripping pure hostility, no doubt about it. Someone tossed that rock on purpose to wipe them out. Lean tilts her head and stares up at this massive, muscular chest looming right in front of her, and she can't even scrape together a single word to react. Ryuji glares at it, then growls that it's finally decided to show up. A hulking, shredded goblin towers over them, flexing like it's about to smash everything in sight. Ryuji bets It's some goblin hero, but Lean just stares him down and asks if he's the boss of the whole pack. Ryuji whips around to Lean and demands her staff right this second, leaving her totally stunned as she scrambles to understand what he's up to. She fires back, asking if he's really serious about picking a fight with that thing, then warns him their enemy is likely a rank 2 monster or even worse. Ryuji basically tells her, I already know, then turns it up and makes it crystal clear he's walking away and he's handing all the support magic over to her. Staring that monster down, they could tell this guy wasn't anything like the normal ones they'd faced before. Ryuji yanks his daggers free and snaps that they can't just stay silent because that monster won't let them walk out without a fight. He sinks low into a stance and tells Lean again that it all rests on her because it's obvious the beast has zero plans to let them leave this encounter alive and whole. Out of the shadows, a swarm of smaller goblins burst forward, rushing to back up their leader, and Lean starts raining down magic on them. But frustration spikes fast because they keep multiplying way too quickly. Ryuji tells her he's sorry, but she has to keep fending them off until they take down the big guy, while Lean snaps that they're just looping the same fight again and again. Lean stares as fresh enemies crash in, and it hits him high-rank monsters usually come with minions, but this is getting out of hand. Out of hand, Ryuji can tell on sight they're up against something far nastier than a normal boss. And it's turning the fight into a straight-up nightmare. He's hacking at it over and over with a super sharp enchanted dagger, and still not a single scratch appears. He even toys with the idea of using a magic stone to blast the whole place to rubble. But then he snaps to reality that would trigger a cave-in and end them both. Sure, they've wiped out a few of the little goblins, but Ryuji can already feel it at this pace. They're just bleeding out in a game they can't win. Right then, the monster erupts with a brutal surge of energy, blasting him before he can even react. With the beast flexing pure raw power, it's obvious his diamond enchantment won't survive an attack like that, so he snaps to action. There's no way he's letting this fight drag on, and he hunts for one tiny chance to freeze the monster's movement for even a split second. He glances down. His rock is already starting to split from the sheer pressure of his magic, and that's when he realizes he has to move right now. He steps forward and pours everything into a whirlwind enchantment, trying to slam this thing shut before it breaks him. The distraction slams into the monster like a wrecking ball, and it erupts in a brutal roar of pure pain. Ryuji stares at the opening he made, smirking and muttering that this should buy them some breathing room. He shouts for Lean to grab her chance right now, and she fires back instantly. On it. Lean shoves her mana into gear, calling it to swirl around her and spear straight through the enemy. She yells for her lightning spell to strike, then a gigantic burst of white light explodes through the room. Ryuji stared into the smoke, sure that with all those goblins surrounding it, their strike had finally ended it. But when the dust finally settles, the monster is still right there, towering, grinning that creepy grin like it's barely been touched. Lean is utterly stunned. She can barely process it. Her strongest attack didn't even leave a scratch. Ryuji leans in, and then it hits him. The necklace around its neck is packed with magic resistance, and that's why. That's when it clicks, magic is totally useless here, and that's the very reason his dagger enchantment bombed earlier. Ryuji groans that he's doomed too. He prayed a potion would save him if his magic failed. Then Lean admits the truth. All she has left are poisons and explosives, so Ryuji curses that he should have grabbed a freezing potion, because if he'd known it would get this brutal, he'd be ready then. Lean cuts in and asks, "You really think a potion could have frozen all of this solid?" Ryuji suddenly clocks it. This could be their final shot. And with that cloud of dust way back there, he's got a gut feeling that if Lean fires off her soil-loosening magic and pins that monster in place, it'll seize up, then we can dash right past it and crash deeper into the room. Lean says, "I've got this," but then she snaps, "Where are we even going?" And her nerves skyrocket at the thought of getting stuck in some dead end. Ryuji snaps that everything's going to be okay, even as that massive monster looms over them, poised to smash down. He grabs her attention, tells her to trust him, locks eyes with a fearless grin, and makes it crystal clear they're in this together. Lean swallows a breath, tells him she's putting her entire trust in him, and then she calls up the earth spirits, pouring her power into the ground until it crumbles under the goblin's feet. Lurking in the mud, they snapped a snare on that massive monster, pinning it so it couldn't move a muscle. Ryuji flashes a cocky smirk as he braces for impact, while Lean pours every ounce of power into her next move. He hurls a tiny object straight at the monster's face while it's still trapped in the mud. Ryuji screams at Lean to move, and before she can even react, he suddenly lunges in and grabs her out of nowhere. Lean calls out in shock, but Ryuji barrels forward anyway, telling her they don't have time. Just a brutal burst of icy light detonates, and the monster shrieks, swearing it's freezing to death as the cold crashes in and takes control. Lean finally eases her pace, and when the danger slips behind them, she lets out a long, shaky sigh like she can breathe again. Stepping into the fresh air, Ren leans in and spots it. There's a second entrance right there, and Ryuji just grins like, "I knew you'd find it." He tells them that earlier, a strange breeze swept through the cave, and deep down he just knew his gut feeling was about to hit the nail, but Lean can't stop wondering how they slipped out, so he demands to know what that magic stone he launched really was. Ryuji tells her it's a frigid magic stone. then reminds her it was one of the items he showed her right on their way to Southstead. Ryuji flaunts those dark stones and claims they can blast freezing cold and lock anything nearby on the spot. But Lean is totally baffled. She swore magic wouldn't work on goblin heroes, not with those necklaces of all things. Ryuji snaps at her that she's probably just getting enchantments all wrong because once you understand how they really work, everything changes, and that's where his point was headed. Surprise hits her. Then he leans in and explains even enchantment is magic. It's really just nature's laws used without mercy. Unlike regular magic that wells up from a person, this kind feels like a technique that reaches out and siphons power straight from the world. Lean realizes it straight up sounds like alchemy, and Ryuji tells her, "Yep, you nailed it." He decides it's time to go back inside, but Lean can't shake the fear that that freezing cold is still clinging there. So he yanks out a heatwave magic stone, smirking because the cold is probably already starting to lose its grip. Once they're sure the boss is dead, he says they'll grab the stone, wipe the air clean, and make sure they can get moving. Lean just stands there, totally stunned. Like, how does this guy pack more useful tools than an actual alchemist? Ryuji surveys the chaos and realizes the enemies are utterly frozen solid just like that, so they don't even need to fight, only stare. He leans in, shocked, because he never thought that tool would be this powerful. Ryuji drops to one knee and pushes them to start ripping the magic cores out of the boss and the other goblins, because those cores are basically the whole fortune. And once they're done, he tells her it's time to head back to the guild, still finishing that mind map like they promised. Lean just grins and says she's ready. They keep trudging back toward town until Lean finally shoves the guild doors open and blares, "We're back!" Anne looks up from the counter and breaks into a warm smile, welcoming both Ryuji and Lien as they step inside. She blurts out that she knew they were going to the burn mine, then leans in and asks, "So, did you guys actually score anything out there?" Ryuji flashed her a smirk and said it went perfectly, then bragged that they even uncovered a brand new vein of ore. Anne's completely caught off guard, but Lean barrels on. She doesn't even slow down, holding up the finished map and launching into the whole explanation as Ryuji yanked out a huge bag, told the receptionist these were every magic core they scraped out of the mine. Anne's jaw hits the floor at the sheer size of the haul and she blurts, "Did you smash into hobgoblins?" Because those cores are massive, way bigger than the normal ones. Ryuji blurts out, "This wasn't just some ordinary run, there was a goblin hero down there, and it was making everything," and she freezes solid just staring at them, demanding clarification because she can't believe what she heard. So she rubs her head, looks up, and tells them to give her a second while she takes it all in. She starts rattling it off, and just like that, they discover a brand new vein and take down a goblin hero. But she's not the only one listening, as the other adventurers in the hall start huddling together, they trade whispers, buzzing about whether they really just heard the news of a brand new discovery. The crowd erupts into chaos. People shove the ore aside to gawk at the goblin hero's magic core, and everyone starts whispering, did these two really pull it off all on their own? The entire guild swarms toward them, and the moment they lock eyes, everyone starts losing their minds, cheering Ryuji and Lean like, "You two are absolutely amazing for making it happen." One guy hollers that a new vein could wake the whole town back up, while another freaks out at how wild it is that they just wiped those monsters clean out, leaving the two of them stuck side by side, grinning as they soaked up every single cheer the crowd threw at them. Anne finally steadies herself, takes a deep breath, and announces she's officially accepting the map and the bag of cores as their finished job. Anne tells them the item they hauled in is so rare it slips past the guild's usual rules, so the guild basically has no choice but to do this. They can't pay out until they've done a full review of everything first. Lean's totally cool with waiting, and Ryuji says the plan works perfectly, but then he nails another problem, even if they're getting paid as a group. They haven't officially registered a real party name yet. Ryuji's eyes go wide, and he blurts out that he totally forgot because lately they've been running around so non-stop that his brain is just fried. So he whips around to Lane and asks if she's got any solid ideas, and she snaps a hand to her chin, thinking hard for a beat, then her eyes flare with excitement like she just cracked the exact answer to everything. She pitches a name, then drops the history bomb. It's an ancient word that, in the old language, means artisans. And it feels like that's only the tip of the iceberg, like she's about to reveal something bigger. Anne shoves the paperwork across the counter and tells them the official procedures are done for good. She's going to win. Ryuji shoots her a grateful smile, tells her thanks for everything, and blurts that he's sorry for dragging all this trouble onto her today, then hesitates. And then he just grins, swears it's totally fine, and thanks them for the huge help they've thrown at the town. Anne points at the guild members and says this is exactly what Southstead needs to snap back to its old energy. Then Lean grins, practically glowing, and tells her she's so happy to hear it. The second they realize it, everyone in the room starts treating them like the legends who just saved the city. People are yelling from every corner that they're counting on the duo from now on. Anne shoots them one last warm smile and tells them the guild's got huge hopes riding on whatever they choose to do next. Altina's two already built a huge name for themselves, standing there like they've finally snapped into gear and are ready to take on the whole world as a real team. Once they step outside, Ryuji throws out the idea of calling it a night. and grills Lean about what they're doing tomorrow, while Lean shoots back that she's got to stock up on ingredients ASAP, and Rugi nods and says that they'll hit the market first thing in the morning. Then boom! A sudden, earth-shaking scream rips the moment apart. A girl pops out of nowhere, shoots straight at them with her finger, and screams that she finally found him. Ryuji doesn't even blink, he just strolls up, greets Minori like it's nothing, and tells her she nailed it for making it through that brutal long trip to find them. But Minori's having none of it. She blurts out that he just shoved a letter at everyone and disappeared without a single word. Ryuji demands to know where Suzu is and whether she stayed with Minori, but Minori shuts it down. Suzu had some things to take care of, and she'll catch up with them later. Minori snaps the clues together, and then it hits her hard. The alchemist Ryuji described in that letter wasn't just anyone. It was Lane. Ryuji freezes. How do they even know each other? Lean finally spills the truth. They teamed up on a quest together back then. Lean lays it out. Everything shifted the moment Marie crashed into that top-tier guild, and Minori confesses, straight up, that she'd felt something was seriously off from the start. Minori tells her, "That sounds like you went through hell," but Lean just laughs it off like it's nothing at all, like it's already over. She grins and says she's doing amazing now because she's locked in on a brand new goal. Turns out Ryuji stepped up and carried the weight that let her focus. Minori just stares at her and says, "I get it," clocking the fresh tension between them as she suddenly hits her like a lightning bolt. She remembers what she was supposed to tell her brother earlier. She tells him that the moment she rolled into town, she actually bumped into a bunch of people who were hunting for him. Right then, two adventurers burst onto the scene, and Minori instantly clocks them as the same guys who'd been jumping her in the forest. Lady Sess steps up in front of everyone and kicks things off by apologizing for arriving so suddenly. Ryuji reassures her it's no big deal, but you can tell he's dying to know what kind of business lured her all the way out there. Diet calls her Lady Sessai to yank her attention, and she doesn't argue, she just nods and agrees. Staring at Ryuji and Lean, she blurts out an apology asking them to forgive her for snapping, and for not introducing herself the right way the other day. She drops a jaw-shattering bombshell, pulling off the truth that she's quietly Raffries and von Beestein, and that she's the first princess of the kingdom. The air turns heavy when she tells them she's here to request a personal favor, and it blindsides them completely. Then the crew storms out to the fields, hunting down every material they need for the task, ready to get to work right now. Ryuji calls her Setsu, then tells her, like she could have just stayed behind and let them handle the manual labor. She claims she won't sit back while everyone else does the work, and right when she says that, Lena suddenly blurts out, "I found something." That little girl hoists this massive basket of plants like it's treasure, practically buzzing with excitement about the huge haul she just scored. Ryuji tells Minori her haul is seriously impressive, then quickly hisses, "Keep it down. This is a secret for the princess, and we can't let anyone hear." The girl gives in and stays quiet, and Ryuji and Lean shoot each other a grin like, "All right, let's get moving," because it's their turn to get to work too. We snap back inside the workshop. Everything goes eerily still around the library and the stairs. The host drops a freshly brewed cup of tea onto the table and urges the guests to dig in and enjoy every sip. Setsu thanks them, insists she's got to stay incognito, so they should all chill, and Ryuji nods politely, accepting the offer. Lean flips open her notes and calls him Lady Tsetsi, while Ryuji presses, asking if they can finally dig into the details of her request. Deet lunges in to explain everything to Ryuji, but Setsu cuts him off instantly. She insists, "Since this is my request, I'll deliver it myself." And suddenly Deet has no choice left, just nod and agree. Her smile fades fast, she goes dead serious and tells the group, "I need to say something big right now." She locks eyes with them, voice razor sharp, and orders them to never let a single word of what's about to happen slip to anyone. Ryuji locks eyes with her, flashes a confident grin, and tells her, "Leave it to me." So he whips around to the girls and asks if they're good with it small talk. Not for long, he even promises that she'll give it her all, and Lean nods along instantly, no hesitation. Setsi blurts out that everyone in the public is still totally clueless, but then she cuts herself off because a few days ago something went down involving her dad. Ryuji shoots a sharp question. "You mean the king himself?" And she nods like, "Yeah, him." Her smile fades fast as she tells them her dad's stuck in bed right now, crushed by this sickness. She jumps in and says he just straight up collapsed out of nowhere like the power finally caught up to him, which makes Ray right on the spot, catches what they're doing, and fires off. "So this whole thing is about making medicine." Ryuji shoots back with a quick nod. "Yeah, that's exactly it." Setsi swears they even dragged in a top doctor from the capital to check him out, yet not even that genius could crack what kind of illness it was. That's when it hit her. She remembered the two of them and she rushed over to find them, begging for help. Ryuji soaks it all in, then tells her, "I finally get it. This is exactly what we're up against." Ryuji slams his hand up mid-talk and yells for Tetsetsu right there because Lean hears all that praise and suddenly feels like she doesn't deserve a single bit of it. Especially because she insists she can't take the job until she knows what the symptoms are, and then she blurts, I'm sorry," So she tells Setsi to spill every single detail about what's happening to the king. Setsi stares into her tea, then breaks down everything that's been happening piece by piece. As Lean listened, a sudden look snapped across her face like something inside her finally clicked into place. Ryuji's face is set in stone, while Minori just stands there, totally baffled by whatever is going on in their heads. She finally asks if they cracked anything, and Ryuji quietly nods like he's confirming everything before, or spinning back to Setsi to tell her the truth her father isn't sick at all. Setsi nearly rockets out of her seat, staring at him like, "What do you even mean by that?" So Ryuji shuts it down fast. Everything she just laid out screams curse, not some ordinary illness. Ryuji says that if she had brought her father to a priest or an adventurer, they would have clocked the truth right away. But if you're just a regular doctor, nailing a diagnosis like this is almost impossible. Sets is utterly frozen by the shock, and the only thing she can barely spit out is a cursed whisper as it all clicks in her head. She blurts out an apology for rushing them and wasting their time, then steels herself. She has to get to the church. But Lean slams the brakes right there then. Ryuji rises, points at Tetsu, and says, "If it's only a curse to break, I'll handle it. My enchantment magic's got you." And Setsu just gapes at him, baffled beyond words. How on earth is enchantment magic even supposed to undo a curse? Ryuji stays ice calm, leans in, and tells everyone the curse. Someone dropped on the king is way weaker than they think so. So if they've got a dispel magic stone, they can erase it in a snap. He admits he's got 0 stones on him right now, so he slams down, starts crafting a fresh batch. He stares at him, hope and worry tangled in his eyes, and blurts out, "So how long is it going to take to get this done?" Ryuji scans the local plants and grins. He's sure he can grab every ingredient he needs in that forest out back. So he pleads with Setsi, "Can you wait until tomorrow?" And she goes silent, gripping her dress tight as her emotions fight to break free. She locks eyes with him, says she gets it, and pleads for him to go on with the plan. After that, the whole crew heads out to start gathering. Ryuji calls over to Renetta, telling her to check how everything looks from her side. And she grins right back, telling him she feels just as good about this place. She crouches by the bushes, spots the droppings, and declares they're proof those bits belong to a slender board, no doubt. Or Setsi is completely stunned, blurting out if Renette can really spot a monster just like that, then Ryuji only laughs it off like, "That's just an elf's nose for you." Renee looks totally put off and blurts that she'd rather not smell it at all if she can help it, because having a nose this sharp is a double-edged curse. Setsi's curiosity sparks and he blurts out, "So what exactly is a slender boar?" So Ryuji lays it out. "Yeah, they're huge, but they're skinny, mostly lurking in the shadows. They're not usually a major threat, but you still can't let your guard down." Lana nods along with the group and warns that the boars could still be lurking nearby, so everyone has to stay sharp and keep moving. Ryuji stood beside a cart piled high with supplies, glanced down the hall, and asked if they finally had enough. Nen gives a quick nod and says, "It looks perfect, especially since they snagged enough extra stuff to keep materials stocked for ages." DIET spots a few of the extra things they hauled in and demands to know, does that clay they grabbed earlier actually matter for anything? And then he spills the truth. This is a key ingredient in top-tier medicine, shattering everything and making him realize the whole alchemy game goes way deeper than he ever imagined. Renee cuts in, saying, "Yeah, it's amazing for alchemy, but even regular doctors swear by it because it's basically perfect for calming a wrecked stomach." Diet hears that and instantly thinks, "This is the perfect cure for my problem." He chimed in like, "Yeah, he's always whining that his stomach hurts, so if he's going to complain no matter what, we might as well let him try it." Diet shuts her mouth and grudgingly admits she's got a point, while Ryuji just stands there stewing over how brutal Dietrich's life must be. Lana locks eyes with Ryuji and tells him he's seriously out of his mind, and when he asks if she's actually being for real, the words come out like pure exhaustion. Lean suddenly halts the group, eyes locked on everyone, and tells them to wait just 1 second because everyone looks genuinely worried. Ryuji blurts out what's going on and she tells him the truth. She can smell beasts and blood nearby. She jabs a finger toward the tall grass and says, "The smell she's picking up is coming straight from deep inside those bushes." The squad spots a dead creature sprawled on the ground and someone blurts out, "Wait, could it be one of those lean, spear-thin boars leaning?" Lean stares at the body and locks in, "Yep, it's a carcass, but the way it died feels wrong, really wrong, like something doesn't add up." As they stare at the cuts on his body, someone blurts out that it had to be a monster animal, maybe even a bear. Lana looks visibly shaken by the thought of a bear showing up, but Ryuji swears the whole situation is way weirder than it sounds. He stares at the body, then jabs a finger at it, saying that this boar's corpse is far too spotless for any real predator, saying that if a bear truly killed it, it would have been ripped apart and eaten way more than that. Lana stares at him as the truth smacks into her, then blurts out, "So does that mean there's something else out there?" Lean nods along, saying it all hinges on one thing. If that predator was still locked on its meal, the whole outcome would have gone down completely differently, but Dietrich surges forward and hurls his shield ahead, demanding to know if a bear is truly the problem they're facing. The girls are totally horrified by what's right in front of them, and Lana can't stop herself. She grimaces at the sight as it sinks. Ryuji just stares, and you can tell things are about to hit a whole new level of serious. Right in front of them stands a monster so massive it dwarfs the entire group, towering over every single one of them. Minori doesn't waste a second. She bolts into the fight, slashing her sword at the beast, but her blade hits the target and leaves not a single scratch, and she's so stunned she blurts out like, "What is this thing? How is it this tough?" From the sidelines, Ryuji stared in disbelief, wondering how Minori's strike could have missed like that. Minori's already sure if this was just some ordinary wild beast, she'd rip its arm off in a single strike. She dug her heels in beside Ryuji, but the more she watched this monster, the more she couldn't shake the feeling, what the heck is really happening here? Ryuji spots the beast in full view, those glowing eyes lock on, and the gem on its chest proves everything. Ryuji realized this predator wasn't normal, so he snapped, "Cecil, stay back," and surged forward to shield her. Ryuji stares at that monstrous shadow and locks onto the name Chimera Kuma, and yeah, that's straight up bad news, because a chimera is basically a wild Frankenstein monster, multiple animals smashed together into one single body. And yep, alchemy forges them purely to jack up their stats and turn them into living weapons. Ryuji knows that in any civilized country, these monsters are supposed to be locked down tight and kept on a leash. Still, he can't shake the question, what kind of idiot would let something this dangerous slip away and run wild out in the woods? Lady Cecil won't hide from any of this, she snaps. That she's not just going to stand there while everyone else protects her. So she swivels toward her, leans in, and asks if she can team up and sync her attack. Lean's instantly all in. Lean draws her magic in deep, begging the mana to gather because next she's blasting straight through that bear. Lady Cecil doesn't hesitate. She summons her flame arrow and drives it straight into that bear's face. As Lean surges with crackling lightning, both of them hurl their spells right at the exact same moment. The magic snaps into place, the bear explodes with a savage roar, and Ryuji instantly thinks, that hit us straight on. But the moment it hits, he knows something's way off and that it still won't be enough. The Chimera is still standing because its magic defenses are rock solid, so every single one of their attacks bounced off like nothing. Ryuji freezes for a beat, scanning the situation, trying to decide what move they should make next. Then Lean barks his name loud, yanking his focus off the monster just long enough to catch his attention. She leans in and tells him, "I've got an idea." But you can tell she's not fully sure it'll work, so Ryuji locks eyes with her and says, "Forget it. Go for it. Take the shot and try." He snaps his head to Dietrich and asks if he can buy him a moment for the enchantment, and the guy immediately tells Ryuji to hand it all over to him. Oh. Lady Cecil steps up and barks the order. "Minori, hit the monster's back leg so it can't move." Then Lean snaps back, "I'm ready," and charges in. Ryuji wraps up his work, grins and says, "The sharpness enchantment is ready," then turns to the team and tells them, "Now it's on you, I'm counting on you to finish the rest." Minori rockets straight into the chaos, shouting to Dietrich that she's taking over for the very next attack, and she rips out a scream and slashes her blade straight into the Chimera's legs. The monster's caught off guard, unleashing a weird roar as the enchanted blade plunges deep into it. The massive beast buckled mid-fight, stumbling hard and tipping off balance as it fought just to stay upright. Spots the opening. Ryuji blurts out to Ren and hurls a special item into her hands to make their plan go off. Lean snags it flawlessly, shoots Ryuji a quick "thanks," then immediately slips off to work, and with zero hesitation, she screams for Minori and Dietrich to get out of the way right now. She hurls her secret weapon, an exploding Molotov packed with a whirlwind, so the Chimera gets slammed inside a roaring storm of flames. Dietrich and Lady Cess tower back in pure shock, and when Dietrich blurts out what the heck that power even is, she just stares at the blast completely stunned. As Rudy reels back on that whirlwind explosion he pulled off before, he admits he held back to keep everyone safe, but this time, Lean tells him the spell she just hurled wasn't ordinary at all. It was custom built to blow up as huge as possible. Ryuji stares at the smoke, thinking that even if it didn't finish the monster off, it still should have slammed it to a stop. So he yanks out a magic sealing stone and declares, "This next play is the finisher." Suddenly, a nasty slime gushes up and splats over the monster's head, trapping it in total confusion as it gasps, panics, and struggles to breathe. Lady Cess can't even blink. She stares in disbelief and blurts out, "Is that thing really a slime?" And Lean told her she'd seen one of those stones before. Ryuji showed it to her once and she remembered him warning that it could trap monsters inside a slime just like that. Ryuji tells Lean that was a brilliant move, because no matter how hard a monster soaks up physical blows or magic, it's game over. The second their nose and mouth are sealed shut, then the massive beast collapses cold on the ground, fully defeated. Ryuji stares at the magic core they just ripped free, and his mind races. What in the world was that monster really? I'm thinking some random alchemist cobbled it together, or someone straight up got their hands on a synthetic core, and decided to put it to the test by throwing it at a bear to see if it actually worked. Ryuji slams his hand down and insists they've got to report every single bit of this to the guild. No exceptions. And still but it hits him, he has to lock in and craft the Dispel Stone because he simply can't afford a trip there. Leaving him groaning in pain as Lean bursts into laughter at how stressed he looks. Lean asks, should I just go alone, because she knows he's desperate to slam that stone finished fast? She's basically saying, Look, I still have to drop off my transfer notice in Southstead, so I'll take care of the adamant bit and handle the report while I'm there. Ryuji blurts out that he's sorry for all the trouble and tells her that her help would mean everything to him. While Dietrich shifts his focus back to Lady Tsetsi, he zeroes in on their next play. Ryuji blurts out, "Forget this, leave the bear carcass for Minori to handle, and let's sprint back to the workshop." The second they get back home, I'm diving straight into crafting those magic stones. Ryuji watches as Lean scans every last piece of gear, then tells him, with a grin, that it's all ready, every preparation finally done. Ryuji nods like he's on a mission and tells her they're good to go, then fires back, "You ready to jump right in? Now it's finally go time." Alchemist and Enchanter are about to team up. He lifts a massive stone and declares this is their shot to prove they're real craftsmen and back it up with skills. The workshop goes dead silent as they gear up, hands ready for the grind ahead. Ryuji double-checks everything, grins at the stack of supplies, and says they've got more than enough to be done by tonight. Night creeped in as he turned to Riani and said, "All right, this is it. It's officially time to unleash what we're made of." Lean leans in, flashes a huge grin, and tells him she's ready to go. Thor shoots a glance at the rock in Ryuji's hand and blurts out, "Wait, are you telling me that's the real stone they use to forge magic stones?" And when Ryuji confirms it, he breaks it down. This raw stuff is a null magic stone. He launches into it, insisting you've got to use a special knife to carve the blank stone out. Then you crank up the heat and use a catalyst to pump power through the entire process. Then they press a wet stone against the rock, shaping those rough edges until it's finally dead on, before sealing the deal with a final polish, sharpening every edge until the magic luster finally pops. Ryuji points out that once you finish all those steps, you end up with a brutally powerful magic stone. Thor leans in and says, "I've got you, Ryuji," but then he pauses. But even after the cutting's over, he still can't help but admit he's got one burning question about how the enchantment works. Heck, I'm wondering, do we really need that polishing stage if the stone is already supposed to be good to go once cutting and shaping are done? Ryuji warns you that if you skip polishing the stone at the very last moment, it'll never reach its true potential. He claims each step is what chisels the stone into perfect shape, so there's no way they're cutting corners in this process. And that's even more true for stones built to save lives, just like the Dispel magic stone he's grinding on right now. That's where an enchanter's real skill finally screams through. He tells us artisans never stop constantly testing the limits, trying to cram maximum power into a single stone, until he finally wraps up the prep work and realizes everything's set ready to go. Then he drops the catalyst plants and those cut stones onto a heat-resistant dish, ready to spark the next move, and tells Thor he just has to hit this spot with a little heat to kick the reaction off. Magic surges through it, and the leaves instantly shrivel as the stone guzzles the energy. Thor freezes in disbelief and blurts out that the catalyst plant is already dead and withered away. Ryuji stares at the stone, grins, and says, "It's finally loaded with power, now we just carve it, shape it, and polish it till it's perfect." With that settled, he snaps his focus onto Lean, explaining that he'll only enchant the bottle at the very end, so he tells her to warn him the second the potion's done. Lean breaks into a confident smile and tells her she gets it. Then she's all set, ready to dive straight into her part of the job. Ryuji strides over to check on her station, and when he asks what she's making, Lean looks up from her tools and grins. She's brewing a stamina recovery potion. She points out that even if the magic stone smashes the king's curse, it won't undo the exhaustion and weakness that have been crushing him for all this time. She figures real medicine is the fastest way to get him back on his feet after all that brutal physical strain, and Lady Sasai spots the ingredients at once, then blurts out that it looks like a brutal medicine crafted from almost grass. Ryuji spots the name, freezes for a second, then blurts out, "Wait, are you talking about that herb everyone uses to crank up nourishment and vitality?" Lean nods like he's nailed it, then dives into her recipe, grinding the herb into a fine powder, stirring it into distilled water, and finishing by straining every last bit out. Lean breaks it down, she'll tweak the liquid she just strained using alchemy, and if she distills it at the perfect temperature, she'll have that stamina potion ready. Ryuji tells him that since it's made from herbs and he's actually heard of it, suddenly the whole thing feels way safer. Lady Sesai jumps in to back her up, and she even points out that people toss those same herbs into tea sometimes. Ryuji steps up and tells everyone the next part is going to take a while for him and for Lean. Then he asks, "Can you all stick around with us and wait?" Lady Sasai tells him not to stress at all since they're the ones begging for the favor. But Ryuji lights up and says he's genuinely pumped to watch a master at work. As they finally reach their spots, Lady Sissy snaps her gaze to both of them. She dipped her head just a little and flat out told them she was putting everything on them to make it work. Ryuji and Lean lock eyes with her, flash a bold smile and tell her to hand it all to them, then the two of them dive in. Ryuji starts shaping that magic stone with total care on his machine, while Lean watches every move in her chemistry like she's hunting for the perfect reaction. Both of them stay razor-focused, Ryuji locks his eyes on the stone while the line he keeps running makes sure her potion setup stays perfectly brewed. After what felt like an eternity, the grind is finally done. Everything is officially complete. Lean shoots Ryuji a grin and tells him he absolutely crushed it today. But she can't stop herself. She grills him about how the potions are going, and Ryuji tells her they're basically finished. Now the only thing left is getting her to cast the enchantment onto the bottle. Ryuji gives a sharp nod, tells them he's got the plan, and then makes sure Lean knows she did an awesome job. Lean shrugs it off like it's nothing. So Ryuji leans in and tells her it's exactly the kind of reassurance he wanted to hear. Ryuji whirls back to the group and blurts out his thanks for their patience, and Lady Sacy looks stunned. Then Diet steps in fast and demands to know if the job's truly done. Ryuji lifts a tiny chest with a cocky grin, basically screaming, "See, it came out perfect." Lady Cecite leans in close, eyes locked on the Dispel magic stone, and blurts out that it's absolutely breathtaking. Diet just stands there grinning, fully locked in, completely convinced that the stone looks absolutely incredible. This time, they forged the Dispel magic stone into a wild 58-faced polyhedron, built like a true masterpiece. Ryuji strides over and fires off the explanation because the symmetry tricks the eyes with its optical effects. He shows off the design and the stone drinks in the light, like it was made for it. Then he grins and says he crafted it in a shape that lets magic stones hit their absolute best. And standing by the window, he claims the stone's glow will light the way and smash the Majesty's curse clean, guaranteed. He finally ties up every loose end, then lays out the exact precautions you need before using it. They tell everyone, it's way simpler than you think. Just pour in some magic power and it'll start working right away like magic. The lady says it, and I nod, proving I fully get how it works. Ryuji pushes the medicine into their hands, grinning and insisting it'll work perfectly so long as they take it by mouth. Lean cuts in fast, saying Ryuji already sealed a recovery enchantment into it, so the medicine hits harder, and she can personally swear this batch will hit way harder than the usual stuff. Lady Ceci's eyes glisten like she's one breath away from crying, and she keeps blurting out thanks nonstop, overwhelmed by how much they've helped. Lean glanced at the group as the sun dipped, then asked half hopeful, half worried if they could handle another sleepover tonight, pointing out that it's getting way too late and there's no telling what those bandits will try next. Lady Cece ponders it for a beat, then gives in and accepts the offer until they're just getting settled when a voice suddenly screams Ryuji's name. Minori practically crumples against the doorframe like she fought her way through hell just to make it here. Lean and the others are frozen in total shock, barely managing to get the words out. She stumbles into the room and with a trembling hand thrusts a crumpled paper toward him. Ryuji snatches it from her, frowns in confusion, and blurts, "Is this some kind of letter?" While Minori locks eyes on the paper, totally convinced the handwriting is Suzu's, like she has to know. The note's a frantic mess smeared everywhere, but the words, "Help me," hit so sharply that anyone reading it would feel their blood go cold. A horse-drawn carriage rockets down the road, smashing through dust as the whole situation flips into full-blown danger. Minori is curled up on the floor, shattered, sobbing that it's all her fault, that she should have just waited to go with Suzu instead of... He's about to walk away, leaving her crushed in the dust, and Lean finally steps in to steady her, telling her she doesn't have to hate herself for how everything spiraled yet. But Ryuji just stares, stuck on one thought. Minori's been trapped in this state ever since last night while he finally gets it. The real problem digs way deeper than he thought, because he remembers it was him who chose to leave those two behind and blaze out of the city in the first place. So if anyone's to blame for this disaster, it's him. He's the one who needs to take the heat for it, and he can't help it. He stares at the three of them and thinks, they're insane, so talented, so battle-tested. They've survived fight after fight, so he figured they're totally fine on their own, but then he starts to panic, like, was he just too naive to believe nothing would go wrong? And then it smacks him. Minori is probably thinking the very same thing, and she trusts their strength just as fiercely as he does. And that's why she finally said, yeah, it's fine, go ahead and split up. Now that we're looking at everything, it's painfully clear that that letter spells total disaster. Whatever's happening now has blown past anything they ever thought they could handle. Suzu's letter hits Ryuji like a punch. She's truly sorry, and as he stares, he realizes every clue screams that it's far worse than they ever imagined. He glances at Minori, crushed beyond words. He knows she sees the danger too, and that's why guilt is eating her alive. Because they have zero clue what's really happening to Suzu, Ryuji snaps to his feet and orders everyone to move right now, no delays. That letter was mailed from a place called Bekmer, so Ryuji's betting Suzu is still somewhere in that town. Ryuji suddenly cringes at how he acted earlier. Everything moves so fast that now that he finally catches up, he realizes he was downright rude to Lady Sasai. Lady Sasai is handling it like a pro. She tells him, if it's an emergency, don't stress over me, just go. She offers to fetch horses to blow the travel time away, but Ryuji shuts it down. Neither of them knows how to ride, so they'll just snatch the first carriage they see at dawn. Lady Sasai nods, slips a hand into her cloak and tells him, I get it, then pushes something into his hands right before he heads out. Ryuji stares at the fancy paper she slides into his hands, then blurts, what is this? She grins and tells him it's a real formal invitation, stamped with a royal seal. She tells him, since we're headed to Beckmer anyway, let's swing by the royal capital of Lottinger on the way back home. Lady Sess tells them that as soon as they hit the capital, she'll throw a proper formal event to officially thank Ryuji for everything. Then out of nowhere, Lean lunges in and snatches Ruga's attention, totally blindsiding him as he's still lost in thought about the trip. When he spots the worry tearing through Lean's face and demands to know what's wrong, she freezes silence for a beat. Then she grins and shoves a wrap she just bought right into Rugi's hands, telling him it's for him, and he finally realizes he's been so overwhelmed he completely forgot to eat. After snatching the food and bowing with a sincere apology for messing up, Ryuji watches as Lean pivots her attention to Minori, checking to see how she's holding up. Minori's still curled up in the corner of the carriage, staring at the floor as she snaps, "I'm not hungry at all." Lean grabs the moment and tells her straight, if she doesn't build her strength now, when things finally go serious, she won't be able to move, let alone fight. Ryuji steps in, backs her up, and leans over to Minori, asking if she still remembers what their old teacher used to tell them back in the day, reminding her that Master always hammered it into us, if you want something done, you better fuel your body first. Eat right, sleep right, then go make it happen. Minori finally caves and blurts, okay, I get it. Then she takes a bite of the food, steel in her eyes because she knows whatever's coming next won't wait. Minori takes a bite, grimaces, and says it tastes salty, and then Ryuji spots the tears. He leans in and asks what's wrong as she just sits there, clutching her food. The carriage rattles through the woods, and then bam, you can tell they're finally nearing the edge of the Kingdom of D's border. Ryuji admits the trip's gonna take forever, while Lean cranes out the back, spotting that Beckhammer is still a mile away, but then the driver suddenly erupts, yanking the reins with all his strength, desperately trying to slam the horses to a complete stop. The carriage slams to a stop behind a packed crowd right in the middle of the road, and everyone freezes, spilling questions, confused and furious, trying to figure out what's going on and why they're trapped in the way. Turns out a massive landslide slammed down and packed the mountain pass with monstrous boulders, so not a single wagon could get through. The travelers huddle and talk fast. Part of the western mountain has crumbled, and they all realize there's no way they're getting through. A guy starts grumbling that he's got some urgent business in D, and he demands to know if anyone can actually do something about this blockade. Lean snaps that this is a massive problem and grills Ryuji. Are they really stuck walking the rest of the way from here? Ryuji blurts that he'd rather she didn't have to do this, but Minori fires back that they don't have the luxury to sit and wait for the road to clear. Ryuji stared down the mountain of boulders, jaw set, and said, calm as a threat, we're just gonna shift all of this. Lean stares at them, totally baffled, and asks if Ryuji plans to haul everything by hand. Then Ryuji shuts him down fast, saying that's impossible. Not even with a magic stone. He starts sizing up his own skills, then decides to throw away the old plan and use a totally different method to get the job done. As he heads toward the landslide, Ryuji leans in and tells her he'll shove the rocks aside to clear the path. Back in town, the party's home base sits in eerie quiet for exactly a breath. Then it all blows up fast. A guy storms into the room and screams, "Suzu?" while she's just trying to sit there in peace and read her book. He's visibly fuming and demands to know where the hell Minori vanished to. Suzu doesn't even glance up, she just mumbles that she's tied up reading her grimoire right this second. She snaps at him that he can't just crash into her room, but Guy steps in close, jabs his finger in her face, and demands she answers the damn questions. Suzu tells him Minori vanished from town yesterday, and even she has no clue where she went. Then she flips him off and tells him to get lost. Guy's face darkens the second he spits, "Suzu, you little brat," then demands, "Who the hell do you think you are?" She hits her breaking point, but Suzu refuses to fold. She tells him, "That's my line," and roasts him for calling himself a leader when he and his crew basically muscled their way into her party from the start. And she's not done. She's still pointing out that Ryuji and Minori were the only ones holding the whole mess together, constantly swooping in to clean up his chaos. Then she locks eyes with him and goes, "Suh." And he tells Guy that reality is overdue if he thinks he can act all high and mighty, because that's the final straw. And then he finally loses it. Snaps, swings his arm, and hammers the book clean out of her hands. Suzu's eyes go wide. As she finally clocks what just happened, she blurts that the book really was borrowed. But right as she starts to explain, she's cut off by he swings through with a brutal punch, cracks her right across the face, and blood splatters. He's totally unhinged, and he lunges to, grabs her by the collar, yanks her in close, and snaps, calling her a little shit. Then warns her not to get cocky and storms off, leaving. Suzu is left reeling in agony, her face bruised and bloodied as she fights to survive the shock of his sudden, violent snap. Minori finally bursts in, screams at the guy to stop, and tells him he doesn't need to take it this far. She's clearly scared. Terrified out of her mind, she just stares because Guy blows it all off and barks that every bit of this is that brat's fault, like he's not even going to finish his sentence. Refusing to cool off one bit, he demands they be taken straight to the exact place Suzu and Minori are planning to go. He barrels right into her space and snaps that he hasn't even accepted their resignation yet Suzu might. Through sheer pain, he forces the words out, telling him leaving the party is a personal choice and he can't stop them. Then she cuts in and tells him that she and Minori already filed their official paperwork with the guild. And it's like, it makes Guy look downright unsettling, like a shadow that won't let go as he repeats her words back to her. And you can practically feel the dark creep in. He pivots to Sean, and Sean just stares back, totally lost, like he has no idea where this is headed. So he ordered him to snag a fresh room at the inn and keep torturing them until they finally broke and spilled every last secret. Mostly, I'm telling Sean to bring them back to this room later, because he's totally lost track of how much time's gone by. Suzu is sealed in total darkness, every door and window locked down tight. So she can't even guess what's happening outside, and sitting there with her hands tied, she can't do anything but suffer, and her stomach roars so loudly she freezes, suddenly realizing how starving she's getting as she remembers. He clings to his master's old advice, make sure you eat, make sure you sleep. Yeah, it sounds simple, but it matters. But she's already tearing herself apart for breaking it again. She got so lost in her grimoires that she forgot to eat, rest, and take care of herself, and that's the only reason Guy's surprise attack actually landed, because she knows that if she'd been at full power, he never would have caught her off guard, but right now her strength is draining minute by minute, and she refuses to freeze. She has to strike while she still has the energy to move, so she snaps her gaze to the door, hunting for anyone lurking nearby or waiting to ambush her from the other side. The whole place is dead silent. She can't hear a single thing from the hallway, and that means this is her one shot to slip out while the guards are gone, so she shuts out everything, pours mana into her hands, and calls a spell to copy her own dying body. Then boom, the imitation magic ignites, and the whole room erupts in light as the spell snaps into shape. Suzu knows her clones are useless for anything that demands a delicate touch, but they were sharp enough to deal with a letter, so she snuck one out in secret. And Guy plus the whole party never even suspected a thing. Now she's firing off her clone to rush that message straight to Ryuji and Minori. No delays, not a second to waste. The clone bursts down the hallway and Suzu clings to the shadows, her nerves screaming that this crazy plan might fail. She realizes it all hinges on one thing, whether her friends actually got that letter. So, 10 days rolled by after the crew first tore out from South Street. Back at the guild, Eamon stands shoulder to shoulder with Anne, trying to figure out if the rumor he just heard is real, or if it's pure lies. Ryuji suddenly barges into the room with Line and the others, yelling that he's got to ask Amin something right now. Anna and the guys stare in disbelief when he's suddenly right there after all this time. But Ryuji can't waste a second on small talk. He cuts in, tells them they can catch up later, and fires off the question, do you have any idea where Suzu is? Amin looks completely wrecked as soon as he hears Suzu, realizing the situation is spiraling out of control. He tells Ryuji it's crystal clear. Something went wrong with her, and Ryuji just freezes there, staring like he can't move. Right in the middle of the crowd, Ryuji suddenly spots Sean tucked away, and the sight leaves him completely stunned. But when Sean finally clocks it, he's been made, panic explodes in him, and he's instantly convinced he's screwed for real. Ryuji shouts his name, and the second he sees how the guy's acting, he knows this man's hiding something. So Eamon steps in fast and orders Ryuji to follow him immediately, because he's just found a real lead on where they might be. He blurted out that a fresh tip just landed about where they were. Then he led the whole crew down a silent hallway as, while spilling the news that people spotted Suzu and Sean sneaking out of an inn room together, Eamon makes it crystal clear the guild stays out of fights between adventurers unless there's solid proof or else. But once the family steps in, the rules flip completely, and he looks like he's about to settle this all on his own. Eamon tells them he got the full tip from the reception desk on how to play this little setup, and he's convinced Sean's tangled in it because the guy panicked the second it happened. So Ryuji's got that laser focus, and he fires back that if it's really like that, they've got to go see the truth with their own eyes right now before this goes any further. They push through the building as a team until they finally slam to a stop at the exact spot they're hunting. Eamon stands before a wooden door and declares, dead certain that Suzu's trapped inside this room, right where Ryuji. He instantly starts pounding on the door, shouting Suzu's name and insisting, it's me, but he just stands there, staring at the door in dead silence because the other side gives him zero response. One of his sisters comes barreling down the hall with a key, telling him she already talked the innkeeper into letting them in. Then she wastes zero time, slides the key into the lock, twists it, and snaps it open with a satisfying click. Ryuji kicks the door wide open and yells her name, then everyone just stops dead because what he sees inside makes the whole room go silent, revealing Suzu sat alone in the pitch-black room, shattered to the bone. The girls skid over to Suzu's side, bombarding her with frantic questions trying to make sure she's okay while leans in for a closer look, exhales in pure relief, and tells everyone, no worries, she's just asleep. Ryuji's sister yanks Suzu into a crushing hug, bursts into tears, and sobs that she's so sorry she left her all alone just before the rest of her words cut off. Queen shoots a quick explanation she's totally drained from everything, then starts feeding herself nutrients so she can bounce back. Suddenly, the door slams open, and the guy explodes. He screams bastards and demands to know why they're barging into his room. Marie's right behind him. Frozen in shock, she just stared at Lean like she'd seen a ghost, and her voice won't even come out as she tries to say her name. Lean whips her head over her shoulder, and her stomach drops when she spots Marie standing there in the doorway. Then, this guy locks eyes with the whole group like pure rage, then whips around at Ryuji and snarls, "What the hell are you doing in your room?" before kicking him out. Ryuji stands there with his head hanging low, brooding, and mutters the guy's name under his breath like he's about to explode. Yeah, it might. That's when Guy grins, yanks out his gear, and plays it super tough. Then he leans in like, "So what's with that look you're giving me, Ryuji?" He clamps his sword tight, breaks into a grin, and taunts, "So you really think this third-rate enchanter Ryuji can actually beat me?" But Ryuji just squints downward at his own height, then tells Guy straight up that he's still the kind of guy who judges everyone purely by rank and nothing else. He locks eyes with Guy, spits that he's a fake, a second-rate joke, and roars that he can't even finish the job without magic stones. Like, basically, he acts all tough just because he's huge. Then Ryuji locks eyes with him and snaps at him to shut up like a dog. Right before fists start flying, Guildmaster Yemen cuts through the chaos, plants himself between them, and snaps, "That's enough!" He shoots Guy a cold, warning look, making it clear that if he pulls another stunt like this, consequences are coming. Then Yemen hits Guy with a total bombshell. "Did you seriously forget Marie got shoved all the way down to third class?" Guy starts sweating bullets and pleads with the Guildmaster to hold on, insisting it's not his fault at all. Then he rages that Ryuji storming in is what set the whole mess off. Yemen refuses to hear any of it and snaps, asking how Guy even plans to explain Suzu's condition right then. Guy's mouth shuts tight. With rage ready to explode, Ryuji stands his ground and tells Yaman, "Don't even try to stop me, Guy's way past the point where words work now." Yemen lets out a heavy sigh and rubs his forehead, and it hits him. Looking at Ryuji and Guy, reason is done for. So he pauses for a heartbeat, then snaps into action with a new plan, asking the two of them how they feel about settling it a different way. As Guy and Ryuji lock eyes, hatred crackling between them, the Guildmaster steps in and snarls for them to take their little brawl outside, and then he slams the whole thing into official mode, declares a formal duel, and even vows he'll be there the entire time as the witness. Meanwhile, Suzu's body gives a weak groan, and she finally rips herself awake, eyes fluttering open as she feels totally wiped out. Minori blurts out her name, and the second she finally catches on to what's happening, relief floods her face as Leon leans in, tugging at her clothes, like, "Wait, you're noticing it now." Suzu stares up at them, completely stunned. Minori's face clicks in, and she blurts out, "Wait, is that really Lean over there?" Ren leans back and goes, "Yeah," and Minori shoots right into it. "Suzu, do you remember that job we all did together a while back?" Suzu nods, of course, but she's still completely clueless and blurts, "Wait, where are we even right now?" And Lean steps in, pointing her to the training grounds tucked behind the guild. Minori spills every juicy detail, and once she mentions the Guildmaster's plan, you realize Ryuji and Guy are about to duel, right now. Lean watches from the sidelines, thinking if the guild forces them to clean up this mess in public, they can. She knows that if the vow gets sealed during an official duel, even a guy like Guy can't wriggle out later, so that's how she prevents any drama from starting at all. So she's basically praying Ryuji pulls out the win, because once he does, she wants this nightmare to finally be over with. Right there in the middle of the training grounds. Yemen steps in between them and demands they run through the fight terms one last time. He lays it out, straight and serious. He lays it out if Guy wins, Ryuji gets tossed out of the city, and the girls can't leave the party no matter what. But if Ryuji walks away the winner, Guy has to cough up 500 gold for all the trouble he caused, and just like that, he gets kicked down 2 ranks into 4th class. Yemen stares them both down and demands to know if they're truly aware of the rules they're stepping into for this match. They both nod on the spot, staring each other down as the tension snaps at last, and then, when Guy finally snaps, he barrels in with his shield raised, screaming at Ryuji to beg for his life right now before it's too late. Ryuji plants himself on the spot, eyes burning with a dark glare, and tells Guy he's pathetic. Then he taunts him about the demotion he's about to get. Emin shoots his hand up to silence the room, and you can feel it. This is the moment the show finally kicks off. The duel's starting signal crashes across the grounds, and while Guy looks like he's about to rip someone apart, Ryuji stays ice calm and says he'll finish it using only his fist, so Emin lunges in with one last cut, making sure they both fully understand no secrets, no surprises what they're signing up for. The air feels heavy as the rules get hammered in again and again win, and Guy keeps the girls in his party, but if he loses, Ryuji is wiped out for good. But if Ryuji snatches it up, Guy's forced to cough over 500 gold and swallow a brutal demotion that could destroy his whole career. But Emin locks eyes with them both, demanding, "Are you really sure about these conditions before we start throwing punches?" He doesn't even blink. He's sure there's no mistake. Then he tightens his grip and charges forward. Ryuji stays ice cold, nodding along to everything like it's nothing. No fear, no hesitation, just pure silence. Guy snapped, lost his mind, and started screaming at Ryuji, demanding that if he wanted to beg for mercy, he'd better do it right now. But Ryuji just whips his gaze back at Guy with a cold, terrifying glare, scoffs that he's pathetic, and tells him not to sob his heart out over his new rank. The signal finally bursts through, and just like that, the duel is officially on. Guy rockets into the arena with his shield up and his sword clenched tight, ready to collide. Guy winds up for this huge swing, misses by a mile, and slams into the floor while Ryuji just stands there, watching with deadpan boredom. And while Guy's temper explodes, he starts shouting, calling Ryuji a little brat and screaming at him to stop running away like a coward. Ryuji shuts him down on the spot, casually reminding him that getting slashed by a sword would hurt like hell. Then he starts lording over him, trashing Guy's moves as a total mess and telling him to quit and learn from Minori instead. Guy is absolutely seething at the insult, clicks his tongue, and snaps that he hates Ryuji's guts so much, but the crowd erupts the second they hear the stakes. Everyone's stunned to learn there are 500 gold coins on the line. People are whispering that it's so much money you could live like a total king for a whole year. Then Guy explodes at Emin, yelling that there's absolutely no way he's really walking around with that kind of cash on him. Ryuji says he totally figured that out, then whips his head toward the rest of the party and demands, "So do we actually have the money to pay up?" Ryuji calls her out on the spot, saying Marie's probably lounging on a mountain of savings. Marie panics on the spot. She grabs him and snaps, "Wait a second, there's no way I'm doing that." Guy snaps and barks at her to shut up. Then he smirks and says, "As long as I win, it's all good, so she should just hand it over." A man barges in and tells the guy, "Hold up, listen up." Then he snaps that the dude needs some class and has to actually ask to borrow it the right way. She warned him, "Mess up this time and Emin won't even treat that money as yours for the bet." He says, "If Guy can't keep up with Ryuji's rules, then it's all over and my conditions are garbage too." Guy realizes he's trapped, so he snaps his head up, calls out to his teammates, and bows low, begging them to lend him the money. Sean freezes in pure shock, and Marie snaps into action. She gives in and swears she'll do it. She makes him promise, "Win or you don't get paid." And the cash-dealing guy just storms off, muttering under his breath how brutal this whole thing is. He snaps back into a fighting stance, swearing to himself there's no way he'll fall to a weak enchanter like Ryuji. Ryuji just watches it all unfold, smirking like, "Yep, Guy took the bait and snapped exactly the way I planned." And suddenly, every brutal demand for reparations and those strict penalties feels absolutely worth it, especially because he finally realizes this is the moment to stop playing around and go full serious. He kicks off his chant, begging a blazing flame to stab the guy in front of him and flare to life. Then his fire arrow spell officially ignites, but he just stands his ground and lets the flames crash into his shield like it's nothing. Ryuji stares at him like a hawk, confused out of his mind. No real pushback hit when that spell landed. Guy just shrugs it off and bursts into laughter, firing back at Ryuji like, "You really thought that weak, low-level magic would do anything to me?" He won't let up. He keeps firing off trash talk, drilling into Ryuji's head that no matter what he pulls off, he's still just a weak enchanter, and tells him, "Big mouth for someone who's still crawling along as slow as always." Ryuji doesn't look bothered for a second. He just flashes a small smile and tells Guy, pretty much, to ditch that bulky, heavy-looking armor. Guy clicks his tongue like it burns, clearly pissed off at the suggestion, while the tension between them keeps ratcheting higher and higher. Guy snaps, yells at Ryuji to shut up, and swings his sword with everything he's got, but Ryuji's got his eyes glued to that sublimation stone, and he can't stop thinking this is the one thing keeping him boosted. The guy just scoffs at him and fires back, asking if that pitiful move is truly all he's got to prove himself. So Ryuji kicks off a fresh chant, yanking mana from the air until it surges into a blazing bolt of lightning meant to smash straight into the swordsman. He releases the lightning, and the entire area detonates in a blinding blast that dude just barrels forward, screaming at the top of his lungs, cutting through the smoke to slam the gap shut. Ryuji only lets out a tired sigh because when the spell lands, there's zero pushback, just like it always happened with his fire arrows. A sick twist hits his gut, and he instantly knows the guy's got a trick up his sleeve, so he blurts out the truth to break free, then snaps on his appraisal skill to pinpoint exactly what's happening. A gigantic wall of data and status bars erupts over Guy, and it spills every secret straight in Ryuji's face. Ryuji eyes Guy's gear, and then Bam realizes that besides that sword, the guy's carrying zero magic equipment, so he's not pulling any of this off by himself, and then it finally clicks in his head. Marie has been sabotaging his magic the whole time. So he stares the guy dead in the eye and bluntly demands to know if he's using anti-magic to cheat. He doesn't even have a reply, he just stands there, sweating bullets, looking completely wrecked. While the crowd stares ahead, clueless, Marie crouches in the shadows, glowing device strapped to her back, ready to strike. Emin steps up, points at Guy, and fires off, "So you really blew up that sacred duel by cheating?" Guy snaps into a full panic, screaming that Ryuji is just cooking up lies to make him look bad, but Ryuji shrugs it off, tells M and brushes it away, then basically shouts, "Enough talk, let's get back to the fight." He blurts Guy's name one final time as he braces to move, and before Guy can even blink, Ryuji is in his face, hands on him, demanding if Guy really had to cheat that badly just to knock down someone he's convinced is a straight-up loser. Rugi Slam dropped him with a hit so brutal he started choking on impact. Locking his gaze on Guy, he tells him straight to his face that without those buffs, he's not even second class. He barrels forward, trash-talking Guy nonstop, calling him a paper tiger with a huge ego, while he starts spiraling inside, freaking out at how Ryuji has enough power to slam him back like that. He's sweating buckets, obsessed with those 10 gold coins, terrified that he's about to drop 2 whole ranks, but he tells himself hard that if he grabs the top rank, the money he lost will come back like it was nothing. Guy snaps, there's no way he's accepting this brutal demotion, so he flips the whole script and blasts, yelling that Ryuji is the real cheater. He roars that there's no way some useless enchanter who can't fight supposedly should have this much strength, and Ryuji finally snaps. He steps up to Guy and tells him, straight to his face, that he's been getting it wrong for way too long. The guy starts screaming that he's an enchanter built for the backline, but Ryuji shuts him down fast. He only warned them not to expect him to fight like a mage. He stares the guy down and growls that nobody ever told him he couldn't fight. Not even once. Ryuji makes it sound easy, then hits the truth hard. Throw some amateur into a pro-level fight, and all it does is slow everything down. So it just made total sense he locked in as the dedicated support for the party. And he tells Guy there's not a single reason to second-guess it. The truth is right there. Plain as day. He tells them Guy only ever saw him playing the support role, and they just kept trashing him like he was weak trash the whole time. Guy lets out a blood-curdling scream as Ryuji whips his sword through the air, then BAM! Guy rockets across the room, and when Guy crashes to the floor with a brutal thud, Sean just freezes, utterly speechless. Everything spirals out of control when a massive smoke bomb suddenly detonates, flooding the room with chaos and leaving everyone stunned and unprepared. A thick white haze swallows the whole room, then everyone starts coughing and snapping. What the hell is happening? Ryuji stands dead still in the middle of the chaos, calm as ice, staring at the smoke like, is this just another one of Marie's irritating stunts? But then it clicks, there's no way that's cheap enough for her. And a dirty little smokescreen stunt is totally the kind of move Sean would pull. Out of the mist, Guy rockets forward like a maniac. He screams Ryuji's name at the top of his lungs and orders him to die. He drives a gigantic swing through the air like a wrecking ball, yet Ryuji just glances back, calm like it's nothing. They slam into each other in a brutal clash, but Ryuji's lightning fast. He rushes right in and smashes the attack with overwhelming force. Guy's blade gets shattered clean through, and the poor guy just freezes, staring in stunned disbelief as the tip of his sword goes flying off. Right as Ryuji even realizes his weapon is wrecked, he snaps around and rockets straight in. He smashes a brutal right into Guy's jaw, and you hear him choke up as he gets completely flattened. The fight wraps up with an announcement. Ryuji is declared the winner, then the other guy just collapses to the ground, completely knocked out of the match. Everyone stares at the wreckage, then Suzu shouts for Ryuji while Minori and Lean crowd in close, eyes locked on him. He drops to his knees to check on her, then turns to Suzu and blurts out an apology, telling her he never should have abandoned her in the first place, but she tilts her head up, tells him, it's okay, and reminds him she's the one who chose to break away from Minori after everything went down. Ryuji flashes her a gentle smile and tells her, don't stress about that, none of it matters right now. Lean looks absolutely stunned, blurting out whether that insane strength, plus the break the sword move and that devastating kick came straight from a magic stone. Ryuji cuts it all clear. He admits he was using the Fural Stone, the exact same one he used back during that landslide. He lifts the crystal up to the light and tells you straight up, this exact magic stone is what let him pull off those moves earlier. But there's a twist, you've got to use it with nothing in your hands, and then bam, it blasts your physical stats into overdrive. Turns out it's this ridiculously rare stone called a gift, and it's packed with Fural's divine protection, one of the ancient gods of war. Ryuji glances back on it all and says that the purest stone he used before worked in basically the same way. Sure, these stones come with wild rules, drain the soil, even demand empty hands, but the power they unleash hits on a whole other level. Lean just stares, totally stunned, like, if divine protection can dodge anything, then what even counts as enchantment magic anymore? Minority whips her head around and yells for Guy, still calling him the leader, but he's completely out cold, so Sean grabs him, heaves him over his shoulder, and hauls him off without a second thought. After the chaos finally dies down, the whole crew lines up side by side on the path as Ryuji starts wrapping everything up. Still buzzing from finishing that duel paperwork in Beckheimer, they haven't even gotten a single second to catch their breath. He makes it official, announces the Altina party, and the 4 of them stand there, ready to explode into action, and tells them to hunt down a comfy spot, kick back, and let out all that stress because everyone's absolutely wiped. Minori lights up at the plan because they've got to get cleaned up fast before heading straight for the castle. A worried group steps steps in to check on Suzu, making sure she's really okay after everything that just happened. And Suzu flashes a grin and insists she's totally fine, then reveals that Lean's medicine worked like magic on her. Lane raises their official invite like it's a treasure map and urges everyone to head straight for the castle town. Ryuji swears it's a rock-solid plan, and the entire crew gears up to move out. They tear off toward Laudingir, the royal capital. They just knocked it out of the park, and now there's a brand new, massive stage waiting for them to dive into. It's been 12 days since they first tore out of Beckheimer, and the long haul is finally about to end. Even Minori can't hide it. She's feeling the burn bad, admitting every last step has wiped her out. Lean forces a grin, begging her sister to hold on tight because they're right at the finish line, almost there, and she won't let them fall. Then, out of nowhere, she catches sight of the city and lights up, pointing at it with the biggest smile you've ever seen. Ryuji's jaw drops as they finally burst out at the end of that brutal, never-ending journey, and there it is, the royal capital Rodinger, roaring with massive white towers that claw up into the sky. The moment they step inside, the girls dive into trying on new clothes, and Lean leans into Suzushi and blurts out that she looks insanely cute. So Suzu finally admits she wanted to try something new, and Lean can't stop gushing over her fresh, fancy look. They crowd outside the fitting room, sweating, and I'm stuck waiting too. Nori's right there while I keep asking how much longer she's gonna take, but Minori snaps at them to hold on, completely panicked, because the skirt feels so insanely embarrassing. She finally cranes her head out, utterly drained, while Ryuji just sits there watching them blast through the room like they're unstoppable. He whips his head around the shop and suddenly realizes a guy like him has no business being here. Standing there, drenched in sweat, feeling totally out of place as all those women shop around him. Eventually, he blurts out, "Can I just swing by another shop by myself? You two are gonna be ages." Lean cuts Rug off fast, shutting down his plan to bolt right now and making it clear he's not going anywhere. Suzu jumps in, pouting hard because Ryuji won't lift a finger to help them pick the clothes they're trying on. Minori just stares at him like he's completely lost and calls him a total blockhead for missing the obvious. Later, back at the inn, Suzu leans in and tells Ryuji he has to toughen up because he can't be getting worn out that fast. Rugi sits there stewing, shocked by how girls can spend forever just to grab a few things. He leaned over their meal and admitted the whole thing absolutely drained the life out of him. That shopping trip somehow stretched into a full 3 hours, and the second Ryuji started complaining, ugh, it just kept going. All three girls snapped at him at once, blaming him for trashing their outfits with lazy feedback. Ryuji chugs his beer, seething over how unfair it all feels. Then Lean walks in and drops their plans for tomorrow. She promises the changes will be finished by morning, so they better dress up right now before they head over to Lady Cease's. Ryuji nods and jumps on the plan, figuring they need to look their best before they roll up to Lady Cease's place. At the table, Suzu leans in and tells Lean the food is unreal, then practically begs her to take a bite and try it for herself, which Lean can't stop smiling about, yet Minori looks like she's juggling something bigger in her head. Ryuji watches them and realizes the women in his life are multiplying, and they're all starting to get, making him freak out so hard he starts to wonder if he'll even survive being the only guy in there. But his thoughts get yanked away when he catches some guys chatting about the port in Southstead. Ryuji's eyes snap to it the second he realizes this has to be fixed, so trade can roar back to normal. He glances back at the table behind him, hunting for clues to see if the man chatting is really a merchant, as the man blazes through his explanation saying they found a massive resource vein in that old burned mine and that a port, and that would light the whole place up again because there's no way we're letting a mine this valuable just rot away in silence. At the table, the man keeps rambling, saying that even if Marcus Reichner is determined to fix the port, it's not happening because the king is scrambling to fortify the northeast, bracing for a possible invasion that could come straight from Guam, leaving the people in the city begging for one thing: stop the chaos and let them finally focus on building up the Marquise lands. Eavesdropping. Ryuji realizes the mine news has already sprinted through the whole world. Everyone's heard it by now. After mulling it over, he realizes the real monster in their way isn't the planet's distribution, which turns those local "we make 'em" claims into a total mess, leaving nothing but confusion. Soon, the crew storms toward the palace and a guard flips through their papers, nodding in approval as he verifies their introduction. Altina bursts in, warmly welcoming Ryuji, Lane, Suzu, and Minori. Then she waves them in, telling them to come right inside. They trail the guard deep through the estate, racing down those long, arched hallways like the walls are closing in. Then they crash into this huge, shirtless guy who demands to know if they're the guests. The guard snaps a sharp salute, belts out his confirmation, and says as the guard lays it out, Ryuji and Lean are the brains behind the healing potions and the dispel stones. That giant from earlier suddenly clocks who they are, and he's immediately getting insanely hyped in. He introduces himself as George Rochefort Bystane and casually drops the bombshell that he's the king of the whole nation. The whole group just freezes on the spot, and Suzu barely manages to choke out a greeting. Ryuji tries to stay professional and calls himself an enchanter, but the king just dismisses him like nothing. He told them to chill because he made it clear there was absolutely no need for all that formality around him. He flashes them a small smile and tells them, point blank, that after all of this, it was them who truly saved his life. But Ryuji just stares at the ground like it's straight up impossible for them to act normal. Like, that's the last thing they'll ever be able to do, and it's leaving The king just let out a weary sigh again and again, begging them to drop the act and quit acting so stiff. Suzu just stands there, frozen and totally clueless, like she can't believe the king's kind words are wasted on her and she can't take them in. As minorities break into nervous sweat, they tug Suzu's sleeve, freaking out because none of them have ever actually had to speak to a world leader before. Ryuji is just as stressed. He blurts out that none of them have a clue how to act, or what the rules even are for a mess like this, but still he throws caution to the wind, marches straight up, and asks the king, "So, how's your health been lately?" King George lets out a small grunt, then tells them they've got his absolute thanks for everything. He's telling everyone the curse is finally dead and that the medicine hit harder than expected because now he's got more energy than his own body can even manage. He tells everyone that this is the one reason he's been out here day after day, grinding like crazy with his sword. Just as the knight shouted his name, he finally spotted the king's hideout, and it felt like a huge weight lifted off his chest. Jorg spun around and told the knight, "Gotthard, I showed up right on time. The ones hiding behind those magic stones we were talking about are here, and they're about to..." Sleeves stared at Ryuji and Lean. Then the truth hit like a punchline, snapping the last pieces into place. They were the ones behind it all. Gotthard towers over everyone and blurts out his full name, then hits you with the shocker. He's the Grand Master of the Knights. And then he drops this bombshell. He says he heard some of his younger recruits were under their care a while back, and Lean looks totally stunned that he even knows about that. She gets flustered in a hurry, trying to brush it off like, "I only did what felt natural back then." Gotthard won't let it go. He keeps telling them that between helping the recruits and what they did for the king, he owes them thanks, and it has to be for the whole night. King Jorg snaps, "We're done talking in the sun," and he storms off because he refuses to let his guests just stand there forever. So he calls for a guard, orders him to march everyone to the drawing room, and the knight salutes like a shot and goes. As Jorg tells them he's sending Setsi over right away, everyone rushes inside and crowds into the fancy lounge to wait, and then the moment comes when Setsi finally barges in through the door and blurts out thanks, telling everyone how much she appreciates their patience. She grins and says, "It's been forever since we saw each other." And just like that, the whole group finally exhales because they're not alone anymore. They've got a friend with them. Setsi glances over and blurts, "Wait, are you Suzu?" Then Ryuji jumps in right away, proudly announcing her as their youngest sister. Setsi flashes a warm smile at the group and tells Suzu she's beyond relieved. So happy she made it back safe and sound, which totally catches Suzu off guard for a split second. Then she snaps back fast, finds her voice, and thanks the princess for the sweet words. Setsi admits the ride must have drained everyone, especially the ones watching over the group, as she motions them toward the cozy couches in the room, urging everyone to finally drop in, take a load off, and breathe. Once everyone finally settles in, Setsi leans in and says they've got a mountain of catching up to do, but before anything else, she tackles the job dives down, hauls out a heavy bag, and tells them, "I've got the rest of your reward ready." Ryuji snatches the bag and orders everyone to inspect the contents while Lean just freezes, staring at that heap of gold like it can't possibly be real. Ryuji forces himself to stay professional, kicking off the line with, "Your Highness," each word respectful as it lands. But he shuts him down on the spot, staring him dead in the eye and demanding he call her by her name. Ryuji realizes she won't let the formalities slide, so he gives up and finally calls her Lady Tetsu, and the tension eases into the calm. Setsu beams a huge, bright smile and just blurts, "Yes," leaving Ryuji standing there, completely thrown off. Ryuji stared at the towering pile of gold, then shot a sharp look up and demanded, "What's going on?" because this was way more than what they'd talked about earlier. Setsu grins and tells her flat out that she added a little extra on top of the original price, and she reminds him that her very first request was just for them to craft a dispel magic stone. Nothing else. That stone ended up doing way more than she ever imagined. She adds that she's even throwing in extra money too, because the two of them were kind enough to make it happen in the first place. They went out of their way and risked everything to bring medicine for her father's health. She breaks it down and makes it crystal clear. This extra money isn't a random bonus at all. It's got a real reason behind it. She seriously thinks that price is completely fair because the help they gave her family was worth every penny. Setsi blurts out that her dad's been showing up with way more energy than usual. Then everyone around him quickly realizes that extra spark is turning into pure chaos. Setsi glanced down and said she'd just gotten a message from her dad. He wanted to thank them in person, and it was completely separate from the gold reward. She blurts out, "Sorry for the extra trouble," then tells them they've got to head to the audience chamber a little later. As Ryuji stared at this bag of gold in his hands, he couldn't believe it. This money alone was already way more than they ever deserved for the job. Setsi slides in with the group, reassures everyone that what they just pulled off is huge, And then the moment builds up toward the next bombshell ending right after the leading to the part. Later, the two of them stood in the massive throne room as the king commanded them to stand tall because what they'd done deserved pride. The king sinks into his throne and commands them lift your heads. So Ryuji the Enchanter and Lean the Alchemist stay on their knees as the crown steps in and addresses them officially. He jumps right in, thanking them one by one for that Dispel Stone and the Stamina Potion. Telling you the truth, it all turned into a brutal, tangled mess that he had to wrestle with every single day. Ryuji snaps an agreement on the spot, while Ren bows even lower, telling the king he's selling himself way too short. Ryuji stared at the ground, mortified he'd totally tripped over his own words in front of the king. Lean looked totally rattled, like she'd somehow ruined the greeting all on her own. But the king doesn't bat an eye about his daughter already paying still. He insists on thanking them personally. Ryuji forces himself to stay calm as the king orders them to blurt out any request they have right then, right there, like he's daring them. The whole group froze for a beat in the middle of that enormous room, stunned as they digested the offer. Setsi grins and makes it crystal clear her dad really meant for both of them to go in and ask for something, saying he'll basically grant whatever wild wish they want right this second. Lean wrestles with the idea, then totally freezes. Only a few tiny thoughts pop into her head, and she's left with no clue what to ask a king. She glances over and asks if Ryuji has anything in mind, and when he turns back, his serious face answers, "Yeah, I do." He pushes himself up and locks eyes with Lady Seti, telling her there's one real favor he's dying to ask for. Setsi listens to Ryuji, nods like she gets it, and tells him she doesn't see why asking the king would be a real problem, but she looks shaky as she trails off, clearly wondering just how far he's willing to take this. Ryuji stays down on one knee and lays it out straight. He believes it all boils down to one thing, how much they can truly get done. So he decides to go all in and bluntly tells them he's got one exact request he wants to put on the table. He cuts right through the noise and says, plain as day, his demand is all about restoring the port of Southstead out in Reichner. He locks eyes with the king and ends with a bold request he wants the crown's full backing to make it happen. The king's eyes sharpen to a near blink as a low, intrigued sound slips from his mouth. He takes in the full size of what the kid just demanded. Right then, a rough grunt bursts from the side of the room, and the man standing near the throne lets his annoyance boil over. And it's Gotthard swearing he never once imagined common folks would barge into state affairs like this. Ryuji snaps his head toward the comment, sweat breaking out as his mind races. Who is this guy, and why is he so damn bothered? King George shuts Elmer down cold, saying some lessons only commoners can truly understand. But Elmer won't budge, prime minister or not. He insists he sees things a different way, and Ryuji starts sweating as the truth slams into him. The cranky old man isn't just some random grump. He's the guy running the whole country's government, and it's definitely Prime Minister Elmer von Stern. Ryuji clocks it instantly, and suddenly he's in deep water, especially because he basically marched right up to the guy running the government and told him straight up that his methods aren't cutting it, and yeah, that hit like a massive insult to his whole life's work. And yeah, it's painfully clear the Prime Minister and King George can't stand to agree on anything at all then. King George snaps the silence and breaks in. As you shout Ryuji's name, the king looms over them from his throne and tells him straight up that he can't give an answer to that request right now because a decision this massive isn't something he can just slam down on his own authority. And Ryuji shuts his eyes and nods along. Yeah, he already knew from the start. This request was a long shot, so he's not shocked at all. The king can't just hand it over with a simple yes. The king gives in at last, but the second he does, his fist clamps down on the throne's armrest until it screams with a creak, and then he locks eyes with Ryuji and tells him straight up, since he's the king of this nation, he's got to make sure his people's wishes don't just get heard, they actually come true. King George locks eyes with Ryuji and keeps his word, swearing he'll do everything in his power to make that request come true. The whole group storms out of the throne room, and Ryuji exhales like he's been holding his breath for hours, telling them that as long as the king keeps his eyes locked on the southwest, they'll finally be in the clear. As they stroll, Ryuji fires off jokes about Lean being so nervous she actually bit her tongue during the meeting, and Lean's face flames red with embarrassment. She snaps at him to stop bringing it up. Gotthard steps in, praising their effort like it's nothing, and insisting helping out was easy. Then Lean shoots him a look like, yeah, sure. Setsi catches up with them in the hall, tells them they killed it today, and grins she's already staying one step ahead, then lets them know dinner's ready for everyone. The tension finally fades as they walk side by side, and someone blurts out that they should all chill out and just enjoy tonight. One of them blurts, "You ready to head out?" And the others nod and fall in beside them as they stride down the hall together. Suddenly, the story drops into a brutal, dark dungeon. Someone rattles the bars like they're going to break free, screaming for their stuff back because this whole nightmare makes zero sense. Turns out Minori's the one trapped behind the bars. Suzu's right there on the other side, telling her to shut up before she makes everything even worse. A nearby guard nods in agreement and warns them, "Don't you dare spark yet another scene, not after the chaos you already kicked up." Lean's eyes widen like he's about to break because the truth finally lands. Then someone fires back that if they're executing him on the spot for high treason, it's not exactly out of the question, making Suzu stops mid-breath, stunned by the accusation, but Minori snaps back, screaming that Lean would never, ever pull something like that. She's right there behind the bars while Lean fights to stay calm, telling Minori she's going to be fine and begging her not to make a scene as. While Ryuji slumps alone in the dark, the truth hits hard. He's been totally played, and the panic starts boiling. Who set him up, and what do they really want by keeping him stuck in the dark? Ryuji sits alone in the dark, realizing he's been completely played. By trapping him like this, after a second, he shakes it off, and then he decides to worry about the details later because right now he has to lock in. He snaps his gaze upward with a fierce look and tells them the very first thing, find a way out of here. Then the recap rockets back to earlier that night, straight after Finisher's meeting with the king, while the moon hangs over the castle towers, painting everything in silver. And Ryuji finally snags a moment alone. He drops onto the edge of a towering, fancy bed and lets out a deep, tired sigh, trying to sort out everything that's just happened earlier. The guards herded them down the halls, and Dietrich leaned in, saying the back wing already has a room set up for them, and they should all just get ready to move. Get some sleep. Ryuji watches them stride ahead and thinks, they told us to rest, but trust me, things are about to explode into something way more complicated. Ryuji flops onto the bed, hands laced behind his head, and thinks, yes, I finally knocked out everything I needed tonight. He starts telling himself that landing that audience with the king is a massive win, because it's going to give them a monster advantage from here on out. When the dust finally settles, he realizes he didn't just break even. He comes out of it with more than he ever gave up. But then it hits him, every bit of trouble he dumped on those girls comes rushing back, and he realizes he has to find a way to make it up to Minori, Suzu, and Lean. He swears he'll pay them back somehow later, but right now he needs to crash and catch his breath. Then bam, a sudden noise from outside snaps him upright, and in the very next heartbeat he's fully awake, wide-eyed, and on high alert. He cranes his head toward the window, baffled why in the world is he hearing metal crashing together this late at night. The moment his eyes lock in, everything shifts. He's certain this isn't some ordinary guard patrol at all. He snatches his cloak and rockets out of the room, charging straight toward the source of that noise. He bursts in to see the guards tangled in a chaotic brawl with a massive hooded monster, and yeah, it looks absolutely grim. Ryuji barrels into the hallway where the chaos is raging, shouting to the guards that he's finally here to back them up, and the guards practically exhale with relief as soon as they spot him. One even points him out like he's with Athena, while the other blurts, "Thank goodness we need his help right this instant." Ryuji wastes zero time. He snaps a magic stone into place, charges his strike, and hurls a heavy punch straight into the hooded figure's chest. The hit finally lands, but trouble snaps in right after Ryuji yanks back and his arm gets sliced open, and he's left staring like he can't believe what just happened. He winces as the pain slams him, and the truth hits this guy he just clocked is way tougher than he ever looked. When he inspects the spotty hit, he feels stone beneath the cloak. No flesh, no vesh, no give. His heart drops as he realizes this thing isn't human at all. Right as the cloak tears apart, a hulking, jagged rock body crashes into view, and turns out they're fighting a real golem. The monster hammers down with its massive stone arm, and Ryuji has to dive low and bolt out of the way before it crushes him. He scrambles back up and snaps at the guards that the only way to bring this thing down is to hunt its core and smash it. He argues the core's likely tucked right in the golem's stomach, and the guards nod like it's a signal, then they launch into a coordinated assault on the spot. Ryuji searches for the perfect opening to smash the core while the guards keep it busy. Then Minori suddenly calls out to him. He smirks, pure relief flooding his face because his team finally crashed into the fight to back him up. He flies onto the monster's back, realizing his usual punches won't land, so he's forced to. He has to go harder, so he snatches the golem up and orders it to just stay down for a moment. He drives a magic stone into its head, and the blast pins it down hard. Pinned in place, the golem couldn't move, so Ryuji screamed at Minori to finish it, lining up her shot straight for its stomach. The minority girl screams back, then barrels forward with everything she's got ready to end this once and for all. She slams in with a massive strike that tears right through the golem's middles and shatters them. The stone monster sprawls there, shattered to pieces, with smoke choking the air around it. The royal guards stand frozen in shock, staring at the monster like they still can't believe it's actually down. Ryuji stands there alone, still catching his breath after the fight, when a voice praises his performance, then hits him with the fact that he's running late. Minori finally strides in with her sword resting on her shoulder, blurting out a brutal apology for being late because Lin was an absolute nightmare to wake up. They pry at the monster's cracked crystal and, right away, realize it's a synthetic monocore stitched together with alchemy. Minori stares at the core and suddenly it clicks in her head. This is the same exact mess as the bear fight from back then. Lean peers into the dark shard and knows this is the same exact setup as the last time. Suzu strides up to Ryuji and tells him she's wrapped up her check. She's almost certain there was no intruder. She says there isn't a single speck of leftover mana leaking out of the building, so the mystery points to something else entirely, meaning the guard snaps to the truth those culprits still have to be inside the castle, and Ryuji jumps in, saying that's almost certainly exactly what's going on. They charge down the hallway toward a room, grilling, "Is this really the crime scene?" The guard strides ahead, lets them through, and points out the four of them. Altina's party as they step in and get to work. Ryuji and the crew were just standing there when a guard cut in and shouted that they were all under arrest for starting the whole mess. Ryuji freezes on the spot, his mind scrambling as he stares back, utterly stunned by that accusation. Chancellor Stern barges in, grim-faced, and declares the whole thing is just heartbreaking, like he's already clocked their little scheme. The whole group gets shoved behind bars and Ryuji turns to the Chancellor demanding, "So, what's this about? What secret motives are you really talking about?" Ryuji calls out that they got snatched with zero explanation, but Stern cuts him off and snaps, "Stop pretending you're the innocent one." The Chancellor peers at them through the cell door and snaps, "Tell me, weren't you the ones causing all that chaos?" He spills that the golem's core was forged through alchemy, and then he looks at Len and declares she was the one who made it. Her mouth can barely even form the words. Ryuji fires back saying Lean is an alchemist, but he tries to make it clear that doesn't automatically mean she's guilty. He calls it totally short-sighted to brand her as the criminal just because of her job, but then one of the guards snaps at him, barking, "Do you know who you're talking to? Like, really?" The Chancellor cuts Ryuji off cold, snapping, "Just stop at this point, it's way too late for you to play innocent." Especially after everything that happened. After his men finally cracked what they found by searching inside Lean's room, and he lifts the dark crystal in the air and tells them they've found a magic core, one that's identical to the cores powering those golems. Lean and Ryuji both go stone still, eyes bulging as the full disaster of how this looks hits them, and then Ryuji clenched his teeth. Certain as the sky was blue, this had to be a setup, because there was no way Lean would ever stash a core like that. He can't stop replaying what Lean told him. That even with this whole catastrophe, it somehow makes alchemists look like the villains. Sheesh, she'd honestly been relieved it was Ryuji who hauled that golem along for the job. Ryuji had once pressed her for the real reason, but she just smirked and brushed it off like that was all she had to say. He snapped back, "Nope, nothing like that," and then praised golems like they're the ultimate lifesavers, built to help people and prove how useful they really are. She stared at the floor and confessed she's always felt off at the thought of trying to stuff a soul into an object. Lean stared up at the hulking stone golem and admitted that sure, they're useful, but something about actually building one always felt off to her, like the whole idea was cursed. Ryuji listened, nodded like he totally got her, and leaned in like he had to say the rest because he did get it. And then he flashes her a smile, telling her it's totally natural because any elf who truly understands the laws of nature would feel the same. He tells her she shouldn't hold back later if those thoughts hit. She has to speak up because they're in this together, and he insists they should just keep propping each other up with the stuff they're bad at, even if it, which makes Lean tilt her head up at him. A gentle smile on her face, and she quietly mouths thanks for always having her back, but back in the present, Ryuji clenches his teeth because the moment he tries to hold on to the truth, it slips away and he realizes they've got zero proof right now. Then suddenly, finally, Minori snaps, she bursts into screaming that the monocore they found is Lean's. Ryuji cuts her off in a heartbeat, snaps, "Quiet just a minute," and his sisters stare at him like they've just seen a ghost. The Chancellor locks eyes with them and snarls that crimes like this usually earn the death penalty. But today, he's traded blood for exile, tossing them out of the capital instead. He tells them, "You'll get some of your stuff back soon," but right now he shuts it down, "Stay quiet and keep your mouths closed." Just as the Chancellor turns to leave, a voice snaps from the prison shadows, calling his name. Chancellor Elmer stands in front of everyone, staring down like he owns the room, and just as he starts to call out what's going on, someone cuts him off. Ryuji blurts out from the side, demanding to know if the king and Princess Cecily truly understand what's going on here. Summer doesn't even blink as she tells him it's only natural they'll know, and that the king and the prince are absolutely furious with them. This Ryuji gets nailed by the hit. His teeth grind as pure frustration burns through him, then he snaps out an "I understand," and coldly mutters a thanks. Later, once the group is shut away, Ryuji sinks into the darkness by himself, completely wiped out while Lean curls up in the corner like she's bracing for the end. And at last, the prison's dead silence shatters when Suzu softly calls out to her older sister. He glanced over at Suzu and asked, "Did you catch that vibe from Ryuji earlier? Because he never acts like that." Suzu gives a sharp nod like the Ryuji we know would never blow up over something that has nothing to do with his sisters. And that's when it hits. Lean's become dead serious in his life, Minori. Every smile says more than words, and Lean being a precious friend to them now only fuels their courage, so they won't stay silent and let it all end like this. Not when it's just getting started. He reaches for the elf, beckons Lean close, and pulls everyone into one tight group so they can figure out their next move. Minori won't let go of Lean's hand, urging her not to sink into that gloom because she's done nothing wrong. Then Lean glances back at her, and the weight in her chest eases right as who snaps her focus back to her brother and whispers his name, softly calling out to him while she tells the others that if it's Ryuji, he'll already have a move for this whole mess. She whips her gaze to him and demands, "So what exactly do I do?" Ryuji finally lifts his gaze with a sharp grin, nods along like she's right on the money, and declares it's time to break out of this place. He hands Suzu a mission: use your telepathy, reach Lady Sasai, and when she nods, saying, "Got it," She's already moving, and the two sisters pour every ounce of power into forging that link, yet even when Lady Sesai nearly catches it, the connection still won't lock in tight enough. Suzu blurts out that some kind of magic barrier is frying her signal, and Ryuji doesn't even flinch. He just shrugs and says he figured they'd pull something like this. Lean stares at him, baffled. How do you even send a message through a wall like that? Then blurts out what he's planning next. Ryuji smirks and tells her it's actually a super simple fix, like, that's all it takes. And he yanks out a huge glowing magic circle, grinning as he vows to crank up telepathy's power until the barrier finally buckles and fails. Lady Sess and her guard finally slam into the cell, the lock clicking open as they rush inside. And the moment they see everyone, panic hits. Sess blurts, "Is everyone okay?" Ryuji and the others are pacing on the other side of those bars. And when Lady Sesai finally comes for them, he blurts out his thanks, pure relief spilling off his face as he starts to... That the rescue truly worked? Sess blurts out an apology right away, says Suzu filled her in on every detail, but she never imagined it would spiral this far. She's completely baffled that this happened right under her nose. She swears that some kind of report was supposed to reach her, but she insists the guards were only running their usual routine staring at the prisoners, like it was all normal, totally clueless about what's really going on, which makes the whole thing. Ruji clocked it instantly. Someone was yanking every string from the shadows, and he's convinced the Prime Minister is the one behind it all. He can't shake the question, why did they zero in on Lean in the first place? Then his mind spirals to the Prime Minister, and he starts suspecting they set Lean up just because she stood in the way. Ryuji stands there, arms crossed, muttering to himself and grilling, "Why the hell is Lean the one everyone's calling the bad guy?" Lean looks totally wiped out from that whole conversation, and she snaps at Ryuji that every time he repeats it, he makes it sound like she's some kind of bad kid. Suzu snaps into action the second she locks eyes with her brother, her serious face saying, "So I'm the only bad kid, right?" Ryuji just stands there, stunned as everything clicks in his head, staring at the truth like it's screaming. Could Lean's alchemy really have been nothing but a convenient excuse to get them tossed out of the capital? Minori drops her gaze and admits she's been feeling the same way this whole time. Then tells Ryuji she's almost certain this is exactly how it all went down, right up to where. Then Ryuji goes dead silent, and a wild new theory starts snapping into place inside his head, because if the whole point was to get rid of them since they were in the way, then they have to tie everything back to the Dispel magic stone they found, because he's sure that stone and the curse choking the king are the heart of this whole nightmare. He remembers exactly how they shattered that curse for Lady Cease in the first place, and it slams into him that they've blown up the Prime Minister's plans twice by accident. So now he's staring at what happens next. Now that they've finally clawed their way back to the royal capital, they've turned into a huge, unwelcome roadblock for whatever this guy's about to pull next. Ryuji's eyes go hard the moment he speaks up. He clocks that the Chancellor just wants them vanished, so they can't mess with the king or Lady Cease anymore, and he fires back as the plan to exile them for good. He whips around to Lady Cease, and she's just as locked in, nodding hard to say that if the Chancellor really is tugging the strings, this isn't something they can shrug off. She snaps to it, grabs everyone's attention, and announces, "I'm setting up an immediate meeting with my father, the king, right here in the audience chamber." The story snaps to the massive throne room where the king is already waiting in silence. Then Lady Cease leans in and warns them the Chancellor will show up, same as yesterday, so they'd better be ready. Tension crackles in the throne room. Elmer keeps his eyes forward as everyone holds their breath, waiting for something to snap. King George leans down from his seat, mentions it, and you can tell he's already heard everything. His daughter laid the full story on the table, and he nods as he admits, "Yeah, you've been through a lot." But then it all turns serious fast. He tells Ryuji and the others that even if he owes them big, he can't just take their word for everything without proof. So he lays it out plain. If they want to move forward, they've got to clear their names right there. No delays. The king brings it up how he bolted out last night the second he heard the fighting, and how while his guards were already clashing with a shady guy, Ryuji's group crashed into the brawl and turned the whole scene upside down. Turns out the attacker was a whole target powered by a fake monocore. And because that's alchemy, Lean got instantly marked as the culprit and thrown in lockup. Lean looks completely rattled as the king locks eyes with her and demands, "So that's really what happened?" She swallows hard and can only nod. "Yeah." The king snaps, furious that he's been left in the dark, and he grabs Gotthard and demands answers. Why nobody ever told him any of this was going on? Gotthard drops his gaze and admits he's clueless too, then blurts out that if the Imperial Guard is keeping secrets like this, it's a disaster waiting to explode. Elmer steps in, tells the king to calm down, and promises he'll look into the soldiers involved right away. Elmer keeps hammering the point Gotthard can't possibly watch every single low-ranking rookie during training, so blaming him for what happened is just plain brutal. The king listens and has to swallow his pride because Elmer just laid out a truly fair point. Then he leans in and asks Elmer if he knows anything about what's going on. But Elmer just drops his head and admits he's got zero clue about any of it. He even shrugs it off and claims, "If the military brass can't file a proper report, it never even makes it to my desk." Suzu and Lean are done with his nonsense. They're getting furious because the guy literally walks into the dungeon and still acts like he has no idea what's going on. Ryuji keeps his eyes on the whole exchange, knowing someone like that never just messes up and gets caught so easily. Then it hits him. His group, the ones that were supposed to be exiled and erased from the story by now, are still right here, and that's when he realizes the problem. They're only getting a shot to speak because the whole situation blew up in a way the Prime Minister never saw coming. Ryuji knows he has to dig up real proof of what these guys are doing, no matter the cost. But Elmer just stands there, way too relaxed, and Ryuji can't stop himself from wondering how that guy stays so calm. Lean and Ryuji abruptly lock up. An earth-shattering crush of pressure slams into the room from every direction. The floor starts splitting under some unreal weight, and Elmer just sits there like it's nothing, casually asking what the heck all that noise is. Right then, a huge wall of rock and debris shatters outward, then blasts inward like it's getting ripped open from the inside. A giant stone golem crashes into the hall like a wrecking ball, and the king and his guards just stare, completely stunned. Lean finally gets it. Why Elmer was grinning like that because he'd been sitting on a monster the whole time, and while she blurts his name in full panic, Ryuji only shoots her a quick nod, then keeps his gaze nailed to the threat. He can tell this is pure brute force chaos, but honestly, it's just about to blow his... Yeah, it totally makes sense if you're the prime minister. Getting rid of them is faster than dragging it out through dirty political games. They don't get a second shot if they can't survive this fight. They'll lose the one chance to prove they're innocent. Leaving the massive stone golem right in their path, it practically begged to smash them all to dust. Ryuji cracks the truth wide open, and it all clicks together from the Prime Minister's POV. Playing petty political games is a total waste of time. He could just wipe everyone out and be finished in one sweep. Seeing the threat, King George snatches his weapon and tells Gotthard, "I'm rushing in to help, but the Knight Commander lunges in front of him and snaps to the king, "Back off, keep out of the crossfire." Ryuji steps forward, nods at the commander, and tells the king with full, "This wild mess is exactly the kind of job real adventurers handle for a living." He tells them, "Leave that golem to me and my crew." Then he leans in and fires a sharp warning at the king. "Watch your own back or things will go bad fast." Elmer just stood there, tongue-clicking with pure annoyance because Ryuji totally saw through his little game while, as the massive stone golem roars so loud it shakes the air, it charges forward, hungry to smash every single thing in its path. Ryuji lunges straight into the brawl, shouting his diamond monostone enchantment as he hurls a non-stop storm of rocks. He screamed for the strike to land as the stones slammed into the towering giant, erupting in a brutal blast of dust and wreckage. But the golem won't even twitch, so Ryuji snaps and slams on his Vajra release right away. He jammed more power into his strike, using a fuel magic stone trying to smash straight through that brutal armor. He's starting to get it. This golem is way tougher than the one from last night, and there's no way he can just knock something this huge down without it turning into a nightmare. He tells himself he has to stand his ground no matter what until the others come back, and right then, he hears a voice calling his name. Lean, Minori, and Suzu finally burst into the room, panting hard and immediately apologizing for keeping him waiting all that time. Ryuji flashes a grin and glances over his shoulder, because he knows their timing is dead on for his next move. He doesn't waste a single second. He summons Minori to his side and drags her straight onto the front line, screaming for Suzu and Lean to hurry up and get ready, because now the whole crew is about to team up and take this thing down together. Ryuji flat out announces he's about to unleash an enhancement spell on Minori, then orders the rest of the crew to keep the golem busy for a few precious moments. Suzu and Lean fire back, "Got it?" and charge forward to take on that giant grinding pile of moving rocks. Suzu wastes zero time. She whips out her lightning net, then commands the electric energy to snap around the golem's massive body. As she keeps the chant roaring, she calls straight to the god of magic, begging for just a sliver of its power. She seals the deal by begging for a hammer-like blast, like they're about to smash that stone monster to dust. Right then, her not-quite spark-web grid snaps to life and unleashes crackling chaos that fully snares the golem in a tangled electric mess. The moment the magic locks it in place, it screams with a deafening roar, and the whole room rattles like it's about to break. Ryuji shouts over the roar that once Minori's power-up is done, they've got to slam straight for her legs before it keeps thrashing around. Minori gives him a quick nod. Then she's ready to move the moment that spell lands. Lean's drowning in the pressure. She tells Suzu she's sorry, but her voice wavers because she doesn't know how much longer she can keep herself from falling apart. Suzu dug in her heels, done watching what this thing could do. Now she was ready to end it. She erupts back into chanting, pleading to her god for one tiny glimpse of an even greater power. She screams that this is her last shot, right as a colossal mechanical hammer starts materializing in the sky, as the legendary Mjolnir hammer crashes down with earth-shaking force, rattling the whole room, and then Minori catches the opening, blasts out, Suzu and Lean switch, and rushes in to finish the job. She looks absolutely locked in, then tells the golem, "Get ready, you're about to feel one of my moves next." She surges forward with Kairi's sharp skill and plunges her blade straight into the heart of the stone beast. She barrels forward and unleashes a brutal horizontal slash that bites straight through the golem's torso. The hit is too brutal for the monster to survive, and it erupts into a million shattered rocks, leaving Gotthard and the others cheered from the sidelines, but In his gut, he still couldn't shake the fear that they hadn't really finished him for good. Dust whirls through the air as a voice screams for Lane, who's stuck, frozen in the rubble. Right as the scene cuts, Ryuji grits his teeth as a brutal hit slams into him, and he twists just in time to catch. She jerks her shield up just in time and blocks the blast, then reaches out in stunned silence, screaming his name as he gets thrown back. He's slammed into a massive burst of energy and flying debris that rips through the room and wipes everything clean. Lin and Minori sprint to the crater, frantically yelling at Ryuji, "Tell me you're still alive," and then you find him slumped on the floor, gripping his head and groaning that every single inch of him is aching. He realizes that if he hadn't fired off his diamond skill on pure instinct, he never would have made it out. But Suzu's not buying it. She snaps back that of course he's in pain after pulling a stunt like that. Lin stares up at him, relief and worry crashing together. She thanks him for the rescue, then snaps that he's reckless to the core. Ryuji stood there with nothing to do, flashing a shaky smile as he bowed his head and apologized for the scare. Minori snaps her gaze toward the chaos, still trying to wrap her head around it as she blurts out, "What the hell was that?" They nod along, staring at the massive crystal golem, and say its healing speed is honestly terrifying. Ryuji clenches his focus, a bead of sweat rolling down his face because he realizes if they can't figure out how to stop it from moving, they've got one real move left: keep ducking those brutal blows and then punch straight for the core. Suzu pops up from the side and yells at him not to shatter the magic core, leaving Ryuji totally baffled as he blurts, "Then how are we supposed to win?" She locks eyes with him and gives him a piercing look like, yeah, she's not guessing anymore. She's got a real plan for this. Suzu snapped her gaze to Lin and demanded to know if she happened to stash any oil mixed in with her medicinal supplies. Lin just freezes in place, eyes blazing wide, utterly baffled. Why on earth would anyone need oil right now? Nearby, the knights stare in horror as their swords barely scratch something that huge and tough, while Ryuji scrambles to think his way through it. Dietrich's eyes are locked in. He tells everyone, "Right now, we don't chase anything else. We buy time and we keep the king and Lady C safe." Dietrich scans the group and suddenly realizes Ryuji isn't bluffing. He's got a real plan, so he snaps at the knights to trust them and stay locked in. Ryuji snaps his head back and asks, "Everybody ready to roll?" Because they're officially committing to the strategy, and Minori fixes him with the sharp stare, then shoots him a quick nod that screams, "I'm ready." Setsi yells, "I'm in," with zero doubt in her eyes, fired up and ready to push this all the way just as Aline snaps to attention, eyes locked in. And the second the team takes their spots, her focus sharpens like a blade. Ryuji storms in and starts heckling the golem, calling it a big oaf so it locks onto him instead of everyone else. He skids across the floor, grinning as he vows to keep the monster swarmed with his adamantine skill blazing, dodging every single strike, and Suzu and Lin slip in right behind him. And in that tense beat, the golem's eyes stay locked on Ryuji. Suzu fires off her spark web, trapping the colossal crystal beast in a crackling net of lightning and pinning it in place. The minority dives straight onto the monster and growls that the time has come. Right now, it's going down. The massive crystal golem starts buckling under the brutal pressure, and razor-deep cracks burst across its body. The heavy body thuds to the floor and it shatters the instant it lands. Ryuji steps back, staring as he hurls an oil flask into the mess and yells at Suzu, telling her to take over from here. Suzu steps forward, screams for her magic to take form, and whips up a giant whirlwind that slams into everything. A violent storm of wind whips through the room, spraying every shattered piece of the monster in slick, oily coating. Gotthard spots the stones have stopped reforming, and Dietrich suddenly sniffs the air, asking if turns out it's oil they're smelling. Ryuji just flashes a confident nod and confirms, "Yep, that's exactly it, right?" He reveals how the golem's healing trick worked. It yanked in nearby stones and used them to mend itself back up. So he grabbed Suzu's swirling whirlwind and turned it into a laser-precise way to blanket the whole thing in oil then now. And that slick coating blocks the stones from locking together. So if the monster tries to stand up, it'll keep sliding right off its footing. Ryuji scans the wreckage, and there, dead center, he realizes the monster is basically wiped out, and the girls are completely blown away. Lin calls the plan brilliant, while Minori grins and says it's exactly what she'd expect from their genius mage-making. Suzu gets all smug. She just stands there, smug as anything, with a proud little giggle, and then Ryuji snaps back into action, tells Suzu the monocore is still whole, and demands to know what they're doing with it. Suzu glances at the king, and he asks if he should come over. She answers with a quiet nod, inviting him to join them. Elmer snaps instantly, barks that it's way too dangerous for the king to get that close, but the king shuts him down on the spot, shooting Elmer a hard stare and ordering him to be quiet for just a minute. Everything goes deathly quiet as the king strides up to the group by the pile of shattered stone and bachina, and Suzu gets to work, slinging her magic like a spotlight, chanting for the core's history to crawl out of the past and reveal itself. He digs up a memory from before, and in the vision, Elmer tells someone the old core got wiped out. Then the other guy snaps back that next time he'll need a way stronger golem. The vision slams into them like a wrecking ball, and every single person in that room freezes, utterly stunned. And Ryuji finally snaps the puzzle together. This was Suzu's plan from the start, and she was clutching that core the whole time. The king snaps his focus straight onto Elmer, barking, "What the hell did you just see in that vision?" Elmer just freezes there, sweating buckets and choking on his own words, while the king stares him down like a final verdict. Suddenly, Elmer snaps, he erupts, screaming that the whole thing is a lie, insisting the girls are only tossing out a fake illusion just to make him look terrible. He keeps reaching out, eyes blazing with panic as he begs the king, "Don't fall for their tricks." But then the situation spirals into, but the king only stares at him, pure, crushing disappointment, telling him it's downright painful to watch him fall apart like this. He shuts Elmer down cold, proving his excuses don't hold because this memory magic is so rock solid it's actually used in court as evidence. And once the full weight of what's happening finally hits Elmer, he slams to his knees and goes completely silent. The king wastes zero time. He barks orders for his guards to grab Elmer, then demands they hunt down the royal alchemist who helped him. The guards instantly bark, get him moving, and drag Elmer off while he slumps there, utterly crushed and giving up completely. The clouds above the castle start to thin out, and that crushing weight in the air finally loosens its grip. Out on the balcony, Setsi stands tall, tells everyone they were a huge help, and then blurts out, "I'm so sorry," like she can't believe she dragged them into all this trouble. But Suzu just flashes a smile and tells her, "Don't stress now that we've finally cleared our names. It's all okay." Minori jumps in too, saying she honestly hopes everyone keeps backing their workshop from here on out. And it has the king bursting into laughter like, "Don't worry, if anything else pops up, I'll reach out for sure." Setsi blurts out a reminder and the king just nods along like it all clicks. Then he pulls out a special document. Ryuji receives a sealed envelope and the guy tells him it's the official plan for rebuilding support for the port of Southstead. Ryuji stares at the letter like a weight just vanished, then tells the king he can't even put into words how much it means to him, but the king brushes it off, telling him to let it go, because this little favor is nothing compared to what he still owes them. King George leans in, asks Setsi if she's fully on board with everything he said. She just flashes a smile and gives him a quick, solid yes, as the king officially declares every last one of them a hero for saving the entire country. Lin and Suzu explode into cheers and wave like crazy, while Ryuji and Minori just stand there soaking it in, feeling better than ever about. Meanwhile, Elmer stalks in the shadows after tearing free from his cell, panicking that the guards will catch him the moment he hits the castle town. So he ducks into a local hideout with his hood pulled low, his face hidden, muttering that everything has spiraled into a full-on disaster. Right beside him, Guy is completely cracking, cursing up a storm at those reckless adventurers who ruined everything for them. Elmer snaps to his senses that he's got to get out before everything goes south, while Guy slams the table and roars at full volume, demanding where Ryuji could have vanished to. Sean tries to talk some sense into him, telling him it's time to cut Ryuji loose, since they still have that promise to keep with the guildmaster, but Guy just freezes, staring him down, totally stunned by that crazy suggestion. He snaps at his crew, glaring them down and reminding them this whole mess hit them first because they were the ones who got caught. Then bam, turns out they didn't just lose their status. They got tossed all the way down to the 6th rank. The guy's spiraling hard panic spikes when he realizes there's no way in hell they can cough up 500 gold using the pathetic rewards their new low-rank gig is giving them. And just to make it worse, Marie's been acting completely uncooperative ever since they got demoted, turning the whole mess into a total disaster. Even more tense then, a voice from the shadows snaps, calling Guy out for being so agitated, and Guy whips around instantly, demanding who the hell is lurking there. The hooded figure leans in and tells him to calm down. Before he even brought it up, he caught them mid-conversation, talking about a guy named Ryuji. The moment he hears the stranger's words, Guy's eyes light up, so he blurts out his name and asks, "Tell me how you know me and what'll it cost?" The guy smirks and says he doesn't want a single penny. This only makes Guy more suspicious, so he slams his hand down and demands to know the man's real motive. And the stranger leans in and admits he's got his own debt to settle with Rugi, too. A dark look snaps across his face, and he decides he's ready to hear every word the man has to say. Hurried the hooded guy into a smirk. Yeah, it feels good knowing he's finally catching on to the plan that fast. The hooded stranger dips close with a wicked grin and orders Guy to take Ryuji's life instead. The guy tilts his head down and flashes a nasty smirk, basically nodding along like, "Yeah, we've got to get him out of here." Meanwhile, Ryuji soaks up a peaceful moment, arms stretching wide after he finishes another batch of stones. He hears his name shouted, snaps his head up, and locks eyes with a face he knows. It's Lean, she tells him. Lunch is almost ready and pushes him to go round up the others. Ryuji pops up with a grin, tells her he's got this, and then he darts outside. Lana and Lena clock him on the spot. Then they start waving like crazy and yelling, "Big brother!" He strides onto the path and grills the two girls, asking how everything's going and how it's all been. They both burst into cheers, yelling that everything's awesome as they sprint up to meet him. The sisters straight up tell everyone, "Thor hooked us up, now we've got real helpers stepping in to back us." Lana breaks it down. An entire wave of merchants and workers from the guilds has crashed in to lend a hand, and she's hyped too. Minori and Suzu are stepping in and she's calling them a total lifesaver, while Minori just flashes that easy smile. Ryuji's jaw drops with relief. He's just heard the news, and he's fully sure his deal with Marcus Leichner paid off every ounce of effort. He glances at the crew of workers, then shoots out a heartfelt thank you to every single one of them before. He orders the whole crew to lay off for a minute because lunch is right around the corner. Lena bolts for the food on the spot, but Lana snaps her back. Wash your hands first. As the girls head out, Ryuji grabs a quiet moment and finally feels it like the chaos is over and things are actually going right. Then the tale yanks us a week back right into a swanky room as a door swings open. Ryuji and Lean are sprawled on the couch when a man finally strides in, apologizing over and over for keeping them waiting. The man steps up to the pair and declares his name, Walter von Reichner. Walter kicks things off by saying the king just crowned him with the rank of Marquis, and that's where the whole introduction ignites. And Ryuji jumps in, saying he's only a third-class adventurer, and yeah, he's an enchanter too, while Aline smiles politely and introduces herself too, then casually drops the bomb that she's a third-class alchemist as well. Walter leans in and says, yeah, sure, besides the official letter, I've still heard rumors about Ryuji, how he can make crops ripen overnight. These local markets are apparently booming because of it, so while they're at it, he asks if there's a way to pull off the same thing for the other fields around here too. Ryuji says, I'd love to help, then shoots it down. Those special magic stones we need are brutally impossible to get. Walter looks totally wrecked as he admits he's been drowning in non-stop complaints from the other farmers lately. He thought about hitting the brakes, but with the market moving like this, slowing down felt like pure wasted time. Ryuji glances up and blurts that he wants to do something to help, but he just doesn't know what to do yet. Ryuji blurts out if there's a way to make it work, and Lean jumps in, go find the right people through the Commerce and Industry Guild, which it spins into them hammering out a set of specific rules, all to make sure the shipment amounts stay fair and square for everyone. And Ryuji drops the truth like a mic. He's convinced this plan could finally lift the money troubles the local farmers have been drowning in lately. Walter actually thinks the plan sounds amazing, but he tells everyone he's got to ask the other farmers first before they commit, so he jumps in with a suggestion. It's basically telling them, pause that talk for now, so they can finally sprint straight to the most important part of their meeting. Walter leans in and says, the big thing he wants to talk about the harbor. And he tells you, since the two of them went to the king and hammered everything out, it finally looks like the tide is turning for real. Walter shoots them a heartfelt thank you, but Ryuji only grins, saying, once the trade lines are back to normal, they'll be getting something out of this too. And Walter admits, yeah, fair point. And he visibly eases up as he makes it crystal clear. Starting things back up again is a massive deal, especially if you're an enchanter or an alchemist. Lean looks totally calm while she sips her tea, but then she drops the bomb. This is straight up life or death for them. If they don't get people buying her potions and magic stones fast, they're cooked in what? And Walter tells them, plain and clear, if everything stays on the current schedule, the entire restoration will be finished in just 3 months. Lean asks if they can start trading overseas once the port's fixed, and Walter shoots back that he doesn't know for sure before whatever comes next even has time to land. He's dead sure that if the king keeps grabbing the reins on the harbor project, everything will start rolling at lightning speed. He grins and tells them with total confidence, I'm sure this time it'll roar right back and become the top port in the Southwest again. The sun blazes over the still workshop roof as the long, brutal day finally reaches its finish. Ryuji starts to marvel at how far they've sprinted back to that very first request from Lady Cease, and that's how it all spiraled into the brutal duel he had to face in Beckheimer. And just like that, everything spiraled harder and harder until they finally got thrown straight into the heart of the chaos in the royal capital. And now it's finally landed him a real deal with Walter hitting him hard with the truth. Everything around him has changed. Lately, Ryuji's been tossed around in chaos, but in the last 2 weeks, he finally found his rhythm, knocking out request after request for the Commerce and Industry Guild. And it's paying off big time. He keeps cranking out magic stones nonstop while Lean locks in on her medicine. Ryuji gazes at his work with a huge grin, and you can practically hear the relief in his laugh, like he's finally living the life he's always dreamed of. Meanwhile, Minori and Suzu are out on the move, juggling one commission after another to keep themselves busy and stay on the grind. And Ryuji even squeezes in time to help Lana and Lena in their fields, slipping right into the community like he's always belonged there. Once that port gets fixed and trade starts rolling again, he's already imagining it like, finally, they're safe for good, and he honestly wants nothing more than to stay in this calm, low-key peace forever. Then snap, a strange sound hits his ears, and he slams to a stop, staring around like, wait, what the heck is happening? He spots Lean close by and blurts out that he's been hearing that exact sound. Lately, he's been showing up more and more, so he strides right over and presses her for what she's really been doing back here. Lean turns around with a shy little grin and admits she's been sneaking in some solo combat training just to get by. Ryuji's jaw drops. He's totally blindsided as he blurts out combat training again, like he still can't believe his own words. He jabs his finger at the strange weapon in her grip and demands, so that's really a gun? Lean nods and tells him it's a special alchemical version. She starts spiraling through every wild thing they've survived, like the goblin hero and that brutal golem battle in the capital. And she tells Ryuji, basically saying, "Look, you've already done so much for me lately." She just wants to find a way to be useful to him too. Right as everything hangs by a thread, Suzu and Minori crash in out of nowhere. Suzu flings her hand up, yells for everyone to lean in, and she snaps back to the crew, reminding them they all swore they'd go out and grab supplies today, then asks, "So, should we get a move on?" Lean gasps like she just remembered something huge. She says she'll run off and get her stuff ready while Ryuji decides he's joining them on the trip. Lena tilts her head up at him and asks, "So you're really coming with me this time, right?" And trails off as she waits. And Ryuji tells her he's got to restock his supplies anyway, then leans in and asks how things are going over at the fields. Lana blurts out that the Commerce and Industry Guild shipped in extra help and now they finally have enough hands to crush the workload. An older woman leans in and praises them both, Lena included, saying they've been crushing it lately. Minori cracks her arm like it's about to launch and admits she goes stir-crazy the second she stops moving, and Susu nods, grinning, saying even a mage's body will start to feel sluggish if they don't get enough action. They stare at the flowers they've gathered, and someone nods like, "Yeah, this is more than enough, you're covered." Ryuji darts back to the group, checking in fast. "Is there anything else we still need to track down?" Lean suddenly realizes they're running dangerously low on salt, so she blurts that they've got to dash to the salt lake and grab brine before they head back only for... But out of nowhere, the air turns heavy and a dark, creepy energy slams into the whole group. Everyone snaps to a stop, eyes bulging wide, totally blindsided by the sudden shift in the air. Lean is left totally stunned by the shock, while Minority admits she felt something awful the instant it happened. Ryuji just stands there, baffled, as that weird sensation crawls through him, and a restless fire stirs deep in his chest. Suzu snaps out a call to him, yanking his eyes back to her, and he looks absolutely rattled by everything that just happened. She tells him straight up, "I'm getting a bad vibe, let's bolt back home ASAP." And then Ryuji locks eyes with her and nods fast because the truth hits him, and she's completely right about what's going on. Lean snaps that they need to hurry too, and the second she says it, the whole crew launches into a full sprint through the trees. They finally stumble back, then freeze in mid-step, staring in total disbelief at what's right in front of them. People are sprawled all over the ground, totally wrecked, like something just annihilated them. Ryuji demands, "What the heck happened here?" And Suzu whips her finger toward the field, telling him to go look at something. It's a mud golem, smashed to pieces now. It's just a heap of broken rocks and dirt, like the ground got pulverized. Ryuji pointed out that sure, these things are usually flimsy, but with his enchantments locked in, it never should have shattered that easily. Lean lunges toward one of the guys sprawled on the ground, blurting, "You okay? Are you hurt?" He jerks his eyes to her, blurts out an apology for what went down, insists he's mostly okay, but then he hesitates and drops the rest of it. Then he hit them with the gut punch. Lana and Lena were kidnapped. Lean's face drained of color. Suzu lunges in and demands, "Who took us?" But the guy only shrugs and blurts that he has no clue. He tells them, "Three adventurers just burst in out of nowhere, and the second they arrived, they started a fight." The guy drops his gaze in shame, admitting, "We tried our hardest to protect the girls, but we never stood a chance against them." Ryuji just stands there, thinking about those three adventurers when a voice suddenly yells that they found something. Another guy strides up, thrusts a piece of paper into Ryuji's hands, and blurts that some big dude sent him to deliver it. Suzu glances at the note, and the moment she spots the handwriting, her stomach drops. She knows that script, and she can't believe what that means. When Ryuji clamps down on the paper so tight his knuckles go white, it's exactly the person he feared, right on the money. Ryuji's furious. He's standing there with a terrifying glare, and he spits out Guy's name under his breath. The group barrels straight into the ruined old building, moving as one until they finally reach the exact spot where a guy just sits there waiting, smirking as he looks up and says, "Wow, I can't believe you actually showed up." He admits he has zero clue how they even found them here at this exact spot, but Ryuji doesn't care about. He snaps into tense small talk, glares straight at Guy, and demands he hand Lana and Lena back. Then pushes, "Where are you hiding them?" Guy insists they're right there, and then boom. Marie slips in behind the two sisters, telling Ryuji not to freak out because everyone's safe. Lena whips her head toward Ryuji, tears spilling as she shouts his name, and her sister just stands there. There, he completely snaps, just scoffing at the whole scene, and tells Marie she's been getting in the way ever since they arrived. He glares at the bruises on her face and demands if she's been beaten enough already, but Marie doesn't. She refuses to back down, then snaps that he's just a kid, and she can't stand there and watch this happen. Lean shoots a worried look at Marie, like he can't stop thinking about how bad things might go. Guy just scoffs and fires back, saying he's been acting like this non-stop the entire time. Ryuji shot a glance at Marie and Sean and realized they weren't coming through like usual. They were completely useless. He can't help thinking it. He never truly trusted Guy from the start, and then It's still wild how easily he tossed that promise aside. Ryuji presses him hard, asking what he's really chasing, and whether it's all just about money. He just stares with dead eyes, like his brain's stuck on repeat, "Money, money," hammering the word back at him. A chilling grin claws its way across his face, and he bursts into wild laughter under his breath. Then, out of nowhere, he snaps like he cracked the code, blasting out that he finally understands it. He slaps on a weird mask and screams that he owes Marie money, then admits he completely forgot all about it until now. Ryuji just freezes, staring at him in total shock at how utterly wrecked this guy is. Marie gets completely blindsided as Guy abruptly shouts at him to wait, then demands what on earth he's forgotten. He lays it all out if he didn't owe her money. He'd have ghosted her a long time ago. Ryuji just stares at the full meltdown, and in his head he's like, Guy is totally off the rails right now. And he corners him, demanding the real reason why kidnap those two in the first place if the money wasn't the point. A guy lurks in the shadows, flashes this unsettling grin, tells him it's all pretty simple, but then his mask rips free the moment things explode into chaos and everything starts spiraling out of control. A massive explosion tears through the area, and Lean's screams shatter the air as the blast slams into both of them. They staggered, still rattled and aching, as the dust finally drifted down over the wreckage. Ryuji shoots a quick check to make sure Lean's okay, and she tells him, I'm mostly fine. The two of them shake themselves out, but that attack's shock hits so hard they're both reeling. Smoke finally thins, and there they are, Minori and Suzu, yanked in the arms of a shadowy figure while Ryuji screams their names, staring right at them. And he drops the act in a heartbeat, flashes a twisted grin, and tells them his plan was never about anything else. It was always about pulling the entire group out into the open. He starts ranting about how everyone's treated him like an idiot for years, tightening his grip on Minori's neck as he speaks so. He turns to Suzu as well, swearing he'll finally unleash his power and crush the two of them into submission. Ryuji's done playing nice. He lunges forward, cursing under his breath, and demands the guy free both girls right now. Right then, a magic fuel stone detonates and explodes into a blinding flash, blasting everyone backward. Lean barrels over to check on the girls. Minori can't stop coughing, and Suzu admits they're barely hanging on. Ryuji snaps to the truth the moment he makes contact. The guy isn't armored at all, it's just bare skin under his hand, and that realization hits him hard as he trails off. Guy just brushes it off with a loud laugh, then fires back at Ryuji, asking if he really thought a stunt like that could get past him. Ryuji froze on the spot, staring at the enemy in disbelief because now he finally recognized the horrifying form he'd been forced into. Ryuji just stared, stunned to the bone, as he finally realized Guy had literally turned himself into a chimera. The guy shoots him a twisted, creepy stare and says, Yep, I'm right. And right as Ryuji warns him there's no turning back, the whole moment locks in like a curse. Ryuji's face falls as he tells that guy, I always knew you were an idiot. But he never saw it coming. Someone would ditch their humanity just to chase a power boost? He shrugs it off with a smug smirk, then fires back. Is that bitterness just fake because you're getting totally wrecked, Ryuji? The minority darts back into the chaos, challenging the whole idea of getting overwhelmed as she storms straight in. She snaps that she only got caught before because it was a cheap shot, and now she's done playing. She yells the name of a special move, hurls her blade down with pure power, then she hits a wall because But the moment she realizes her sword left not a single scratch on him, her eyes blow wide in shock. He just stands there like it's nothing, tells her the attack failed completely, and leaves her frozen, completely helpless. He smashes them with a brutal shockwave, and Minori and Suzu get blasted backward, skidding through the air like nothing can stop it. They slam down with a jolt. Minori clutches her head, then whips around to ask Suzu if she's okay, apologizing for the whole mess. Suzu is totally out of it. She swears she might have already died, but everyone else is just relieved she's still breathing. Guy towers over them like a living shadow, and he laughs at them for still having the energy to keep their mouths moving. He laughs and jokes that their endless chatter sounds straight out of a last will and testament because, hey, he's basically already decided he's gonna die. Ryuji snaps. He yells that he's not letting Guy walk away with this, and then he dives into a desperate gamble, unleashing the power of the Fura's magic stone and charging straight in to finish it for good. But Guy snaps the punch out of the air with one hand so clean and effortless that Ryuji freezes. Shocked someone can shut down an empowered blow like that. Ryuji snaps to the truth. This kind of power isn't human at all, while Guy just grins and loves every second of the way it looks on Ryuji's face. He leans in, sizes him up, and tells him point blank that Ryuji's power doesn't even come close to his anymore. Minori's completely frozen, like she can't even move when she was supposed to be this genius swordsman, but Suzu is just as wrecked watching the truth slam into her as she realizes this isn't something even a genius mage can stop. Guy laughs in Ryuji's face and calls his whole setup, his special enchantment magic and all those stones, a total joke. And he calls Ryuji out, saying he's only riding his big brother's power, and right here, right now, it all hits. He lays it out to his face. You're inferior. Then he presses him, asking if the washed-up trash finally gets just how badly they're outmatched. He kicks off the torture by smashing Ryuji's fist, and Ryuji lets out a raw, helpless groan of pure agony as, while he swears the left leg Ryuji used to kick him earlier is next up on the list. With a twisted glint in his eye, Guy tells Ryuji that once his limbs are shattered and he's left unable to move, things are about to turn brutally ugly. He's plotting to butcher Minori and Suzu on the spot, while Ryuji is trapped and forced to watch helpless as they fight for their lives. Ryuji can only choke out a terrified cry, his face contorting in pure horror as he realizes what Guy is about to do to his sisters. Suzu and Lean lock eyes. Stunned out of their minds, they both gasp as the moment unfolds, and just Guy throws every ounce of strength into crushing Ryuji's hand, and Ryuji clenches his teeth through the pain. Lean finally strides up and aims her blazing weapon straight at Guy, ordering him to drop Ryuji right now, but Marie looks completely wrecked with panic. She grabs Lean by the moment and fires, "What do you think you're doing? There's no way you can win this fight." Lean won't retreat for a second, insisting she knows she's outmatched, then flashes that fierce, unshakable look like she's got this. She reminds Marie, "I knew the risks too," and keeps grinning even as everything starts to look hopeless, and he makes it clear Marie only fought Guy at first because she was trying to keep both of them alive and safe. That's when Guy spots her, jerks his head over with this wrecked, terrifying stare, starts barking that they're all insects for hiding out there. Marie snaps and screams at Lean to sprint at full speed, too late already, because this creepy guy flashes a smile like nothing's wrong and says he's cool with it. Then he's practically thrilled to be the next predator hunting another victim. Guy juts his face up at Lean with a twisted, terrifying look and snarls that if she's really itching to die, he'll put her down first. He drags the deadliest trash out of the shadows and surges forward, his hand blazing with light, ready to finish it all in that instant. But Lean just freezes there, stunned out of her mind. She can't even move as she watches him begin to change. His face starts to melt and glitch like a corrupted game file, and he scrambles to say mage and kill, but his voice shatters mid-syllable. Suzu and Minori stand on the sidelines. Watching Suzu looks completely lost, but Minori can tell something's seriously wrong with him, like it's written all over his face. Nearby, Marie yanks the two young girls close like a shield. One of them trembles, saying she's terrified, and Marie forces her voice to stay steady, insisting everything will be okay. Sean stood there, totally frozen, staring at his leader like he'd just seen the impossible because the guy didn't look human anymore. Ruggy's got a bruised face as he glares at the wreck, frozen in place, trying to figure out what the hell is happening to Guy. His body shatters into a storm of black energy and twisted, warped shapes while he babbles about tomorrow and anomalies like his mind is screaming, but it comes out as nothing but broken noise. Everyone froze, staring into the pitch black until a single distorted eye stared back and that voice demanded, "So, what's even going on?" Sean watches his leader crumble and he shouts, "Dude, you're completely losing it. Look at what's happening to your friend." And Ryuji spots Sean sprinting straight toward the danger, yells for him to back off because he knows exactly what that thing is and it is absolutely not safe. That black energy keeps crawling outward while Sean just stands there, trembling. He can't even make sense of what he's seeing, only blurting, "What the hell is happening?" As Guy's human self vanishes for good, the old thing inside him bursts out a nasty glitch screech that makes everything go wrong. Marie snatches up those two girls and yells for them to run. Lana freezes for one heartbeat, terror gripping her. So Marie barges right up to them, screams for them to move, and the fire in her eyes makes it clear she's not backing down, she's staying to fight. Lana finally snaps back to reality and clamps onto Lena's hand. Then they both decide they've had enough and start dragging themselves out of the chaos. But just as they begin to pull, then Lean hears her name, freezes mid-step, and whips around to look back. She's torn. Like leaving everyone in this nightmare is the hardest choice she's ever had to make. Marie flashes Lena a small, sorrowful smile and begs her to please watch over the two little girls because she's determined to face whatever hits next. Lean grips the kids tight and shouts Marie's name. She doesn't want to leave them behind, but she knows she has to drag them all to safety. Guy belts out one final human scream as that black energy tears through his body. Lean can't even bring herself to look, and she just stands there. She screams for Marie, tears streaking down her face as she fights to yank the kids out of the nightmare. Minori's completely frozen in fear, like she can't even move, while Ryuji and Suzu stare as the transformation unfolds right in front of them. And yeah, this is getting dangerously bad, and everyone's staring in shock as the magic core inside Guy hits full redline and starts going berserk right there in front of them. Suzu snaps at the group, warning them that the black smoke is pure poison, and she yells at everyone to back up. Anyone who inhales that core energy is finished. Once the corruption hits, it spreads like wildfire. And when Guy speaks, his voice is totally warped as he admits he's becoming a chimera, because his body is literally ripping apart in front of him. Minori freezes in shock, tears pooling as she whispers his name, watching her old friend get swallowed up and vanish into that thing. Right next to them, the two little girls sob and beg, "Lean, where is our sister?" Terrified by what's happened, they can barely finish their question, but Lean forces a brave smile, tells them everything's gonna be okay, and swears on her life that they'll rescue their sister no matter what. Lean whips her head toward Ryuji, eyes locked in, and blurts his name. No hesitation. Just the truth, they've got to smash the core before. Things can't get any worse. She snaps that the fusion is still fresh, so They've got a real shot at making it in time if they move right now, and then she rushes to finish the rest before the moment slips away. Ryuji whips his gaze to her steel in his eyes, telling her she's right. There's zero time left, so they have to run. Minori and Suzu answered with the same lean signals that meant, hold them back. Minori flicked her blade free with a sharp nod while Suzu lifted her staff and got ready to swing both of the body. They jump in to help. Lean starts chanting first, summoning the spirits of the earth to twist the ground and yank the monster off its feet. At the same time, Suzu fires up her own prayer to the god of magic, begging for the power to forge a mistletoe trap that can bind the beast and trap it so it can't move. Those dual spells land dead on. A mud snare clamps tight. Heavy branches crush around its body and it's locked there, stuck in the creature can only choke out a pained grunt, thrashing hard against the magical vines that keep it pinned. Minori spots the opening and slams into the air with a battle cry, throwing all her power into one piercing strike meant to rip straight through its defenses. Then the moment the blah cuts off, Minori's blade slams in with a brutal thud. She yelps as she drives the strike forward, refusing to let up on the monster. Minority clamps her sword at the ready and screams at the group to watch out because that monster is still charging forward and it's not slowing down. And Ryuji demands an update, so Len tells him it's fast and brutally tough, its wounds shut almost instantly, and that regeneration is insane, so Ryuji snapped, "This is exactly like that golem fight before." He warned them that even if they can halt its movement, that core won't shatter without a fight. But Lean's got a plan. She yanks out a revolver, grins, and swears she'll take it down from range, then tells the whole crew to line up their shots straight for the magic core, and then she whips around to Ryuji and demands he enchant her alchemy gun. Ryuji locks eyes with her. He goes quiet for a beat, then blurts out her name like a trigger as he commits. He flashes her a serious look, swears he's got this, and starts powering up his magic. The whole team snaps into action. Then a gigantic magic circle erupts as they unleash their combined assault, blasting through the moment. While Suzu kicks off her chant, she hurls a plea straight at the god of magic, begging for a slice of its power to pour into her hand so she can finally gather the power she needs to swing that magic hammer and smash that monster to pieces. Minori shouts his name at the top of her lungs, demanding he freeze, begging him to stop moving. Suzu slams her massive Mjolnir spell down, one explosive bolt of thunder energy crashing into the monster as it howls in agony, trapped under the crushing force of that magic attack. Ryuji watches in shock as Guy rams into a monster form and still refuses to bend, just as stubborn as ever. Suzu swings by to check on Minori, and when Minori insists she's still got it in her, she tells Suzu, "We just have to buy time, let the other two hurry up and get ready." And Suzu nods. Yeah. Ryuji kicks off his enchantment, shouting for a power that can slice through anything just to fill the... Lean steadies herself, eyes snapping to the magic circle, replaying every word she was warned about right before the gun ever came into play. Things are horrible right now, but she knows Marie wasn't always like this. She remembers a time when Marie took real pride in being a priestess, and every day she pushed harder toward her dreams. Lean looks back and suddenly remembers Angela was the one who invited her in the first place, and that's exactly how it all began. When they finally formed the party, Marie changed the moment she opened her mouth. Back then, she was all about it, insisting that as a priestess, she only wanted to help people. She told Lean that with her alchemy and the potions she could brew, they'd finally reach out and save countless lives. That was the exact second Marie officially invited her to join up. And Lean will never, ever forget that kindness. She realizes that even with everything between them in ruins right now, Marie is still a true lifeline, one of her most important friends. Ryuji just stood there, staring at the dirt, replaying his own past and realizing it wasn't all that different from what he was seeing. Even the thought of Guy and the others spikes his fury, but trust me, this isn't the whole story. They stayed side by side for so long, and he couldn't stand the thought of them turning into monsters or falling into a darkness like that. That's why he's finally locked in. He's chosen to finish this because the reason he's fighting now goes way past revenge. Lean lowers her gaze, eyes dark with focus, and nods, readying herself for whatever comes next. Lean stands her ground with her weapon raised, gripping Ryuji's attention as she declares it's time for the final battle and she'll save them no matter what. She suddenly flashes back to how it all spiraled out of control. Like at some point, Marie snapped and became nothing but obsessed with money. It got so bad that Marie tossed her pride as a priestess and her dreams as an adventurer, just to chase gold. But even then, Lean still sees her as a friend. Ryuji stares at Guy's smug face in his head, knowing Guy's always been a jerk, but somehow this whole mess still twists up a bunch of tangled feelings inside him. He can't stop replaying it. Lean dragged him into this mess, and he never wanted it to spiral into something this brutal for anyone. Ryuji finally gets it. That's why they're standing here right now then. Lean lets out a quiet nod, and they lock in together. Both of them know they have to help their old friends while those creepy, glowing eyes from the darkness keep staring them down. Deep inside, Minori and Suzu are getting absolutely destroyed by a giant shadow monster, one that's so fast they can't even keep up. The creature explodes into a deafening roar, barrels forward, and slams Minori through the air like she weighs nothing. Minori slams down on the ground, then immediately shouts for Suzu. Suzu backs her up as they scramble to get everything together for one final stand. The monster slams into a massive spark web, an electric crackling net that pins it in place while the beast lets out a roar of pure pain. Then Minority gets slammed by the energy backlash, screaming while the surges crash all around her. She digs in her heels and shoves forward, yelling for Bale to slice through the enemy, sending Suzu. Stunned at the raw power, the creature lets out one last pained grunt as a massive shockwave tears straight through its chest, but it's not over yet. Minori stares in disbelief as the damage starts healing itself right in front of her eyes, regenerating again after. After soaking up all that damage, Suzu surges forward with laser focus, staring down the beast and vowing she won't let it heal. She lifts her staff to the sky and bellows for the god of magic, begging for only a tiny fragment of power to be handed to her. Suzu shuts her eyes, finishes her prayer, and begs for the mistletoe that can finally wipe out this monster. Then she fires the mistletoe spell and black slam into the creature's body because the beast is completely blindsided when that holy light explodes through the dark room. And just when looks like Ryuji and Lean are finally about to show up, Ryuji shoots his hand forward and tells Lean, "This is it. Now's your moment." Lean snaps into focus, staring straight ahead as he yells at Marie that he's coming for her right this second. A colossal burst of energy detonates on impact, swallowing the entire area in pure light, and the bullet streaks straight into the target. Lean's mind snaps to Ryuji's enchantment, the deadly sharpness he poured into every shot, and she realizes that with this gun, she finally shatters through the enemy's shell. Boom! The hit lands like a truck, and right as that impact roars, even the monster screams a massive roar as its core gets blasted straight into the very heart of its chest. Minority stares at the explosion with a huge exhale, smugly saying he knew it, like all that relief hit him at once because they finally landed the shot. But Suzu's face drains of color as she stares at the smoke, and she can't stop herself. Wait, is this really happening? The core starts crawling into motion, and Suzu's eyes widen because the monster is already trying to regenerate its monocore right there in front of them, and which slams Lane with pure panic. She blurts out Ryuji's name. Just as a blinding light erupts, and from the dark, the beast's face suddenly surges into view, growling like it's got one last threat, and this isn't over. Ryuji barrels in with everything he's got, roaring at the monster that the end is finally here. He lunges straight up to it and snaps that he won't let it breathe for even 1 second to regenerate. He knew Lean's shot would crack the opening for him, so he lunged in and snatched the victory. He drove Cancer's magic stone straight into the beast, and lightning exploded across everything. Ryuji locks onto that razor-thin weak spot in the core, certain that if he strikes it, everything clicks. The whole monster is about to collapse like it's being erased, dissolving into glowing light and choking smoke as Marie finally cracks her eyes open. She's sprawled on the ground, totally out of it, but when Lean spots her, tears slam into her eyes. She starts yelling that she's really awake. Lean tugs at her clothes, breathless, telling her just how relieved she is that she's finally safe, and only Marie stares up at her and blurts out Lean's name like the moment she sees her. She realizes she's been saved. Lean shoots a worried glance at Marie, asking if her body can still hold up after everything she's been through. Marie's drenched in sweat and looks utterly spent, but she forces a shaky smile and tells them, "I'm fine." Lean snaps her focus to Ryuji, who slumped over and completely wrecked, and tells him he's in far worse shape than Marie ever was. Like, seriously, what happened? Ryuji tells them, "Don't panic, that blast you're seeing is just the Ansfar stone's insane recoil." It was one of the strongest magic stones he could hand over, capable of giving someone a massive physical power surge, and you can be sure it doesn't come without leaving a serious mark. He grits out a weird smile and admits the pain is so brutal he can't even move, and talking itself makes it stab worse. Next, Lean's face hardens, and she leans in to tell Marie one crucial thing she absolutely has to know. She demands to know where that synthetic magic core really came from, and her mind flashes back to how absolutely unhinged Walther looked with it. Marie drops her gaze and blurts out, "Loudinger?" saying he swore the stone was handed to him by some guy with a nasty grudge against their whole crew. Suzu can't stop wondering who it might be, even picturing the Prime Minister. But the second it hits her, she remembers that guy should have been locked up a long time ago. Marie snaps the clues together and realizes the guy they've been talking about is the same one Suzu mentioned. Then Suzu drops the bomb that he just got out of prison not long ago, and she remembers the moment the guards burst in, yanking Walder away right after they wrapped up their conversation. Now the whole group is just stunned, soaking it all in. Marie flashes the elf sisters a gentle smile and tells them she's truly sorry they got caught in such a terrifying mess because of everything that just went down. But Lana just shakes her head and snaps, "No, it's nothing like that at all." She blurts out a huge thank you for keeping them safe from that guy, and Lena jumps in with a bright, wide grin to thank her right back. Marie doesn't say a word. She yanks both girls into a tight, warm hug. 2 months slam by, and the story whips over to a gigantic, buzzing port city where the docks are packed and the whole place feels alive. Massive trade ships are docked right in the middle of town. Suzu's all smiles, riding the wave of the festival, and she yells at Ryuji that she's absolutely dying to snatch up some grilled squid from one of those stalls. Lena's just as pumped. She yells at Minori because she spotted fresh herring on sale just a little farther down the road. Lena leans in and asks Suzu what she's about to eat. And Suzu grins. She swears the grilled fish is juicy, rich, and totally irresistible because it's fresh in season right now. Ryuji just watches everyone dart around the market, and he can't stop wondering why the whole place feels so damn restless. He clocks that Minori is the most hyper by far out of the whole crew. Lean strolls right beside him, grinning, asking if it doesn't feel amazing to see everything buzzing like this. Then she tells him it's a festival for the reconstruction, so he better stop overthinking and just enjoy the ride. She says with a huge sigh of relief that she's genuinely thrilled the harbor repairs wrapped up way ahead of schedule, and Ryuji totally nods along as they stare out at the ships. He starts replaying every moment with Guy in his head, still stuck on Marie's promise to whip those three back into shape. Ryuji figures that if Marie truly turned over a new leaf, then they can fully trust her to handle everything. It feels like they finally clawed their way into real peace. So he takes Lean's advice and dives into the festival, ready to actually have a good time. Good. Right then, Thor locks onto him in the crowd, throws up a big wave, and yells to grab his attention. A local spots Ryuji and rushes up to thank him for the magic stones from the other day, saying the whole job got way easier because of them. Ryuji just grins, shrugs it off like it's nothing, and tells him to keep backing their workshop, and the guy lights up and agrees right away. Another woman gives Lean a quick wave, making it crystal clear she's appreciated too. Then Lean freezes, caught completely off guard as the woman gratefully accepts the medicine. She tells her she's over the moon because her husband's back pain is finally totally gone. Lean can't stop giggling, grinning at the lady and saying she's just so happy the medicine worked like a charm. Suddenly, a guy shoves a giant hunk of meat into Ryuji's arms as thanks, and Ryuji just stands there, totally thrown off. While someone else hauls a giant striped fish over to Len, they push it into her hands and demand she take some of their stuff home too. Before they even realize it, a massive pack of locals barrels in, showering them with gifts and non-stop thanks, and Ryuji is so overwhelmed he can barely keep up with what's being shoved into his hands. Suzu and Minori stand on the sidelines, stunned to the core as their friends get straight up buried under a mountain of food the townspeople shove onto them. It's a huge moment for the whole crew standing together in the street, finally realizing how much they've grown to matter to this town. Right in the middle of town, the whole group is just hanging around until someone sneaks up behind them and yells that they look like they're having the time of their lives. Turns out it's Walder von Reichner. He strolls in grinning, then tells them the city's energy exists because of their hard work. He glances over at the elf sisters too, and makes sure everyone knows their fields have been absolutely crushing it lately. Walter goes on to claim the whole market is booming because of them, and he's flat out demanding everyone keep crushing it. Lana shoots back a polite reply, while little Lena beams like the happiest kid alive. Huge smile, cheering loud until... Then Walter snaps his attention back to Ryuji and Lean, and his tone turns sharper as he faces them both head on. He tells them, "Once the festival's finally done, come to my manor for a visit." And the sentence hangs there, leaving the two of them leaned in, wide-eyed, as he swore they'd soon spot something genuinely amazing. And before long, they rolled up to that massive estate. As they step inside, Setsu is already there in her full royal outfit, grinning at them like she's been waiting forever. And she welcomes them, saying, "It's finally good to meet again." Lean and Ryuji just froze in place, and Ryuji could barely get the words out. She's the princess. The princess laughs it off and tells everyone, "Just call me Tsetsi," while Ryuji can barely choke out her own name. Setsi only smiles, confirms it, and leaves Lean frozen in utter silence. Setsi stares toward the estate and blurts that she only came into town to check on the harbor, but once she took a closer look, she realized this city was overflowing with top-notch food and fresh produce, coming in non-stop compared to everywhere else. She's beaming as she talks about how amazing it is to see everyone here looking so healthy. Setsi turns back to the group and says, "The good vibes in this city are probably because of all the hard work they've been grinding out," then pauses like it's their moment to shine. Ryuji suddenly gets bashful, rubbing the back of his head as he admits, "Yeah, no doubt, they've been helping out for sure." Ryuji wastes zero time and tells Lady Setsi straight up he's got no magic stones left, so he can't pull off what he did last time. Setsi looks genuinely stunned and blurts that it's a real tragedy he can't do that performance again. So Ryuji can't shake the feeling. He peers at her face and realizes she's crushed because she was probably waiting for him to admit he's out of supplies. He tells her, "This is perfect because even with the stones gone, Lean can still brew a potion that boosts the soil quality." Ryuji says the plan is rock solid, but once they see the soil and the surroundings, they'll have to tweak it. So since the medicine's already doing wonders in Southstead, he can step up and personally swear that it actually works. Setsi listens, nods, and says she understands. Yeah, she admits it's a killer idea, but she's still got one big problem. Because she can't stop asking herself how on earth could anyone brew enough medicine to cover every single field across the entire kingdom. Ryuji shoots her a confident grin and tells her he's already planned for that exact problem. And he whips out a document packed with the full recipe and instructions Lean wrote for the potion, while Lean is freaking out in the background. Lean is totally blindsided, panicking as he blurts at Ryuji, "Why are you even hauling that thing around?" Ryuji leans in and reminds her they already agreed to sell recipes to keep the shop alive, then drops the truth he knew something like this would hit. Lean looks completely frazzled and tells him, "Yeah, we can talk about it, but I still need a minute to get my head straight." Ryuji steadied her after helping the king, told her she had nothing to fear, then leaned in and asked if she was really doubting her own work just to mess with him. Lean jerks back and says, "No, those are totally different," then fires off a warning to Ryuji she would never hand over something she didn't trust, and he should know firsthand just how insanely effective her work really is. She reminds him without her medicine, the backlash from Ansvar wouldn't have ended when it did. It would have kept tearing at him for far, far longer. And Setsi jumps in to agree, praising how amazing the medicine Lean makes is, which totally blindsides Lean. Ryuji locks eyes with Lean and blurts that he fell for her work from the very first moment, like it hit him the instant he saw it. And he declares, "From here on out, we team up at Altina so our work finally bursts onto the world stage." Two of them, an enchanter and an alchemist, working side by side, forging wonders meant to brighten the future for as many people as they can reach. Ryuji fires off, asking if that doesn't sound incredible, and Lean just freezes there, soaking up every word like it's hitting her in the chest. While Tsetsi leaps right back into the talk, he brags that the castle has the best facilities and even top-tier court alchemists on standby. She's convinced that if they mash those resources together with Lean's recipes, they'll ignite a full-blown agricultural revolution all across the country in Lean. Then, at last, she flashes a tiny smile and admits she was right. Yeah, she guessed that part really was true. Lean whips her head around, stunned when a voice suddenly shouts her name. Setsi flashes her a warm smile and asks if she's ready to sit down and spill every detail. Lean doesn't even pause, she bows deep and shouts that she's all in, while everyone else just hangs back and watches, stunned. That night, the moon blazes over the city as Ryuji and the girls stride through the main square. Ryuji tilts his head to the sky, soaking up the calm for a split second, while the rest of the crew crowds in right behind him. So much has changed since then, like the burn mine finally roared back to life and started working again, and now that the harbor's fully restored and the magic stones are rolling again, it's like fate itself shoved them forward with the wind at their backs. Once word about the soil improvement potion ripples across the kingdom, you'll watch everything finally explode into motion. Ryuji knows the road ahead will hit hard, but with Altina in his corner, he's convinced they'll bulldoze through anything. Watching him, Minori can't help herself. She blurts out that her big brother finally looks like he's actually having fun for once. Ryuji snaps his gaze back to Suzu and admits that even the thought of the future makes his heart slam like crazy. Then he flashes a wink and a thumbs up, saying, "Craftsmen are at their happiest the moment they get to build whatever they want." Minori lights up like the spark, and while the girls take it all in, Suzu and Lean just grin at him with that warm, "you're okay" smile. Beneath the moon's glow, Ryuji leans in and tells them, "When you've got a little free time, come help me grab the materials." And Minori's totally on board, she tells him. Of course, while Suzu steps in and says, "Just leave it to me." Ryuji halts for a beat, his seriousness snapping into place, and then he says, "There's one more thing now. Now that the workshop is finally live for real, he can't stop thinking should they put up a big sign outside the place." Minori practically combusts with excitement. She shoots her hand up and yells that she should draw the pictures. But Suzu snaps that idea down on the spot, saying Minori's art looks like it could summon an evil god, so nope, it's a hard no. Lean looks seriously worried after that. Then she grabs Suzu and demands to know what kind of drawings Minori is actually creating.